When you think about skateboarding, you think of self-expression, creativity, a community built on the love of progression. At the center of that world is Lizzie Armanto, a pioneer of inclusivity in the sport. From a young age, Lizzie knew she wanted to make skateboarding her career, even if she had no clear idea how that would be possible. In a male-dominated culture, she had to figure it out as she went.
Like, I remember growing up, being a woman at a skate park meant like, oh, you're there to like watch the guys, and that's all you're really allowed. I wasn't really a part of their crew because like being a girl is just like, you can hang out, but like you're not like a part of our crew.
There wasn't a clear blueprint for turning skateboarding into a career for women, but Lizzie carried the torch and created a path for women to build careers in skateboarding.
To be in skateboarding, like, one, it's like so fun, but like you also have to like know that like at some point you're gonna slam, you're gonna like get hurt. To do that and get back up again, like you have to be a little tough.
Her skating has taken her from concrete parks to the pages of Vogue and Thrasher Magazine, not by demanding the space, just by skating.
But I watched someone skate my home park at the Cove and they just like float around. But watching it, I was like, it's so easy. At some point, skateboarding will feel that easy if I just keep doing it.
As skateboarding continues to grow, from local parks to the Olympic stage, Lizzie Armanto remains a true reflection of what it means to be a skater. For the next generation of female skaters, Lizzie is a path they can follow.
You found skating and it became a form of expression and it became an outlet, but you're just an artist. I think that you would have found success in whatever thing you ended up doing, but cool for all of us that it was skateboarding.
I'm grateful.
Gypsy Gang, welcome Lizzie Armanto to the podcast.
Lizzie Armanto. Did I say it right?
That's right.
Thanks for joining the podcast.
You're welcome. Wait, are we live? Or
We're doing it.
Is this happening?
Yeah, this is just how we start. It's literally that simple. There'll be like an epic intro that people have just watched before this that even if no one's ever met you, they'll know high level who you are and what you're about. And then we just go into this.
All right, let's get it.
So you talked about the transition from amateur to pro in skateboarding just when we were off camera. So maybe that's a good place to start. When did this turn into a thing that went from hobby, girl skating around Southern California to I might maybe be the best in the world one day?
So when I started skating, I obviously, sorry. I started skating and it was something that I just like was naturally drawn to. And I think a big part of it was like, you can go at your own pace. And I think, you know, in the beginning of anything, you like to imagine like, oh my God, what if I just did this for a career? That would be awesome. Not knowing what that means. And at that time when I was skating, like I was like the furthest off from like relevant or cool in skateboarding. Cause like the pinnacle of that stuff was like being a street skating dude. And I skated transition and I wore pads and I don't know, I was also just like female. And so just there wasn't that space or lane in the industry at that time. There was women that skated, but not many that made a career. And I started going to contests and meeting more of the community and was just like, wow, this is like my community. This is my place.
These are my people.
Yeah. And that was the first I really felt that in my life.
That's cool.
And then at some point I graduated school. I was doing contests. So I was already traveling for skating. But like contests, I wouldn't say that that's like a stable way to make a living. But I was like making a living off that. I was also living at my parents, so I had like no overhead or anything.
You were making the kind of struggle in the beginning living to where it's like you were making enough to justify still doing it while you were young and living at home.
Yeah. And then I started riding for Birdhouse at some point because I used to ride for SMA, which was like a local iconic skate brand. Also very historical, like one of the first 3 skate brands ever. And started riding for Birdhouse, which is Tony Hawk's brand. Yep. And he was like, yeah, you should film a video part. And so I started to film that. And on the first session, I was warming up and I got wheel bite and tore my PCL.
Oh,
And so I just like could not skate whatsoever. And I was going to college and like,
what were you studying?
I was just going to community college trying to get like the basics done. Like I think there's like a bunch of classes that are, you don't even have to have a major yet. You just like have to do them.
Yeah.
And I got hurt. And so I was like, it made me realize how much I wanted to be a skateboarder professionally or like follow this path.
When you got hurt?
When I got hurt. Because it was like, okay, I need to either double down in school or like, I don't know. Like I felt like if I was going to pursue skating, there's like a window of like, you know, when you're best, like when you're younger, you're just like physically stronger. And, you know, as you get older, it's less and less of it's less and less likely that it's going to happen. And so I was like, well, maybe I should like quit school so that I can focus on this. And then if it really just like does not pan out, I can go to school. But if I go to school, I feel like I'm going to like invest all this money and then I'll probably try to start figuring that out instead of pursue skating. And so logistically, I was like, okay, I just need to quit school, which my parents at the time, they were like, this makes zero sense because I was hurt. I physically could not skate, but I had made this decision to like skate full time. But at that time I was like, okay, I'm going to go to rehab. I'm going to like do like PT and just like focus and also figure out like what I need to do to make this a career. And at that time it was like, most people did not have managers. And I was like, I have these sponsors and I'm getting opportunity that I don't know how to manage myself. Like it's like, I don't know, like I can't read a contract.
It's almost
it's a different language.
Yeah, you need a business degree to be an athlete by yourself. And that's where you would need a manager that's just been through it all before, right?
That and like I said at the time, like there wasn't a path to follow. Like there weren't women that were making a career. There were men that were making a career, but at the time in the industry, they're like, yeah, well, we don't really see where you fit in, like how you're going to equate to sales. And having a manager, we were able to like start bridging those gaps and like laying the foundation for that, which was opening the door for other women too. And so like at this time, it was like a lot of things like happened or like it felt like, I don't know, it felt like a lot.
Yeah. No, I could totally. There's no one that's done it before you. You've never done it. You don't know if it's possible, but you're seeing all of these opportunities and there's a lot out there. And I'm sure you had an idea and a vision of what it could be. But yeah, there's like a period of time where the reality's in your mind, not in reality. And you've just got to spend a long time figuring those pieces out.
Yeah. It was challenging and tricky, and also just like it's hard to also negotiate for yourself. So like having the manager and like having them talk to sponsors, like it made a lot more sense because like he understood the logistics of how a business works. Whereas like I'm like, I just want to skate and I'll learn how to skate better. Like, what do you need? How do I fit in the like puzzle?
Yeah, and it is a weird thing when your business is yourself and you start telling people what you're worth.
Yeah, it just comes off really bad.
Yeah.
I think also just like being confident in yourself is like one thing, but yeah, I don't know. That's a very good skill if you know how to do both. But I've yet to manage that, and also I like my manager's awesome, and we've like had a great working relationship. So I don't feel like if it's not broken, don't fix it.
Yeah. No, I mean, there's like a lot of deals. I love the business side of the podcast, but you're not an athlete, but it's a pretty similar relationship in terms of sponsors are coming to you for X, Y, and Z. You've got to deliver. You've got to tell them what you're worth and justify why you're worth it. Like it's definitely It's a whole thing. It's part of it that I enjoy, but it's also a lot of work. It's very stressful. And then, yeah, sometimes you just have weird conversations where you're just like, I'm worth more money, bro. And it's like that. Then it enters, or you have like maybe some disagreements or whatever, and then you're batting for yourself as this entity, but it's you. And it comes across like, damn, this guy really thinks he's awesome. That's a weird thing to navigate.
I mean, also, I think a lot of like any relationship, it always comes down to like communication and like expectations. And like, that's not just in business. Like, that applies to every relationship you have in life. And knowing, you know, where you are, where you want to go, what you're willing to do, and like being able to communicate that with someone else and like them doing the same to you, that's like any good partnership like requires those things.
Yeah, definitely. It's wild to sit here and think about it now because I just feel like you're so iconic in skateboarding and you've created the thing that you're saying just never existed, and your quirky style and pads and skated vert, and there just wasn't a you before, but now I just feel like you're so ubiquitous with skateboarding that it's wild to think about a time where that was not a thing.
I mean, yeah, it felt like a different world, but I think also that was just like I loved skating and I thought it was really cool, and like what I did, like obviously like I enjoyed it and I liked it, and I think that, I don't know, even though it wasn't like the pinnacle of cool, that is still a cool thing to do. Like not everyone's going to get you, or
As a skater?
no, in life.
Just in general?
Yeah, like I don't know, like sometimes I feel like, I don't know, like even with brands, like brands are always looking to like grow and do all this stuff, and like they're just trying to figure out like what is like the equation to like, you know, sell product. And as an athlete, or like as like an artist or whatever, like as a podcaster, like you're kind of like you always have to grow, and like you have to trust your intuition and instinct. And I think like having that belief in yourself and that energy, like it doesn't really matter what you're doing, but like harnessing that will make you succeed or successful. And knowing when to pivot. Like sometimes like I've definitely had goals where it's like I want this, and then I get there and I'm like, it's not what I thought it was. And so being able to pivot, even though like, you know, when I don't know, like I think for like a great example is like, oh my God, like if I think there's like with fashion or something, I'm like, oh, I really want this piece. Like it's so cool. And like now that I can afford certain things, I'm like, it doesn't mean the same thing to me that it meant then. And so knowing that like the landscape changes and you got to pivot too. And like there are some people that are really good at like having this like super long, far out like goal, and like it does mean that when it gets there. But I think just like always being present and like.
Have you thought much about the process as the thing that you should kind of strive for instead of the goal at the end of it?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely all the process, because like, excuse me, like in skating, like if you're trying a trick, like figuring out how to get there, it's just like working through the process.
Yeah.
And like doing micro adjustments, or like taking a different approach, or like, I don't know, some days like things feel really far away, and like giving yourself the grace to be like, okay, how do we shift? Because like, you know, like being a high performer, like being an athlete, you have to be really critical, which will make you like push yourself and like, I don't know, hopefully figure it out. But also when you're like that critical, it's easy to like push that energy, or like, I don't know, like just be so focused on being like trying to get the goal that like sometimes you just have to like take a step back and come back to it.
Yeah, because what you're describing of getting the goal and it being like, I'm not that tied to that anymore. I think there's something that your brain does that sets up, okay, I'm going to go chase that thing. It's just like this constant progression. And I think that moving goalposts, I think it's just such a natural part of being human. And some people have it more than other people to where they get closer and then it just keeps shifting and shifting and shifting. But yeah, I think that most people that end up being very successful are just people that really enjoy the process and they're okay with the goals moving and shifting, and over time they just realize it's not really about the goals that I'm setting or achieving them. They're kind of just like milestones along the way that keep you accountable on that process that you are on, you know?
Yeah, I think what you're saying or what I'm hearing is like there's never like a set of mastery where you're like completed, which I agree with.
Yeah, and I think that as an artist, in business, in skate, like I know so many people that have just achieved so much and they're just still going and going and going. But there's such a balancing act that you have to do to where you're not unhappy until I get this. And then you get there and then it's already moved. And so you just never end up being happy. That's a possibility too.
That is true. I think that is a reality. And knowing where you are and how to be present and appreciate like the little things, like it definitely helps. Or like being able to shift when you're like, I don't know, like I hear about some people and they think about skating all the time and like I don't think about skating all the time. Like I still love enjoying it like very organically. So like, I don't know, I feel like I just go in like phases where it's like maybe for a few months, like if I'm working on a video part or contest, like going to contests, my whole life is skating. But then when I'm not in those moments or like, you know, I have a different like focus or like, especially in the winter when like everything kind of like quiets down for a minute, I feel like having the break is so nice because I come back and I have fresh perspective.
I could definitely see that being a thing. I also picture you as an artist as much as a skateboarder. You know, in terms of, let's say if you're in this podcast now as like Lizzie Armanto, the painter.
Yeah.
I could see that in the same way, or, you know, you being here for some reason other than skateboarding. I feel like your whole general aura is you're an artist, you're a creative, and skateboarding is one of the mediums that you express yourself, you know, and that probably fits more with what you were saying about it skating not being the thing that you're obsessed with 100% of the time, because it's like, it's not exactly what you are in that way.
I would agree. I feel like growing up, I was always into like arts and crafts. And so that was like my hobby. And I think once I found skateboarding, it was like, oh, it's this. And I feel like skating is like, I don't know, it takes a lot less patience in a weird way because you're just like moving and doing stuff. Like creative stuff, I feel like you have to really slow down. But like, when I started skating at 14, I was like, 14-year-olds do not want to like take their time or like it's like you just want to go.
Yeah.
And also skating, like it provided me like the opportunity to travel, and I feel like just really opened up my world and like cultivated, I don't know, the community helped cultivate me as a person, like in the sense that like through skateboarding and like meeting all these different people from different backgrounds, it just like opened my eyes to like, how do you want to live?
Yep.
And also taught me like skateboarding, it can be very challenging, but it's like such a mental game. And like it taught me confidence and like simple things of like when you fall, like you got to get back up and like you got to like try a lot, and it's okay to try. Like I think in some things in life, it feels like if you don't get something right first try, you're a failure, which is not true. Like the people that are really good at whatever have just like tried a lot.
Yeah, and that's not what we want to hear, and it's not what we want to feel when we're, especially at that age. It's funny, I got a friend of mine, and his kid's getting into soccer, and he's like, let's go out in the backyard, let's play. They got the backyard in Texas, and the soccer goal. And he's like, man, my kid loves to play soccer, and he loves his team, and he loves his coach, and he's right into it, but he just won't do it with me. Doesn't want to listen to me, doesn't want to train with me. And I'm like, that is because he's so scared to fail in front of you. He looks up to you more than anybody else. So it's like he can go to soccer practice and like that's a safe space. He doesn't care as much about the coaches. And it's such a built-in thing for us to be, I guess, like scared to fail in front of people that are important to us, you know? Like I never listened to my dad when he was telling me stuff when I was growing up racing. But yeah, that's a real thing. And maybe skating, it's like it's built into that environment. Like if you want to skate, you have to crash and you have to fail. And the whole community at the skate park or the ramp or wherever it is, they're all on that exact same wave. So it becomes a place where you can really make mistakes.
True. Yeah, definitely going to the skate park, like all you see is people like bailing. Like it's not like a video part where you're just seeing like makes and like people cheering for you. It's like people will be like just trying stuff and sometimes your friends are there cheering you on and sometimes you're just like out there.
Yeah, so it just becomes that kind of environment. It's cool that you can acknowledge that skating helped give you more confidence.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's like such a huge thing. I think anyone like growing up, like like there's an exception for every rule, but
yeah.
It's really nice finding something that you can dedicate a lot of time and just like kind of when you spend a lot of time doing something, you're really just learning about yourself.
Explain.
When you spend a lot, like for me going to the skate park, like obviously like my goal is to like just rip. Like that's all I want to do.
Yeah.
But a lot of it is not ripping. A lot of it is just like being in the environment, trying different things, chilling, trying something else, and like seeing what other people are doing and seeing what's happening across the street. Like going to the skate park, there's always something going on, or like I don't know, just being there. But then in being in that environment, I like enjoyed it because it's like social. But then I wasn't expected like at the skate park. You can kind of do what you want. You don't have to do what everyone's doing. You can, just like watch. You can partake. You can ask questions, and in that process, you just like learn about yourself. So like you push yourself and like sometimes you just like, for example, like I really wanted to learn a trick and like you try. Like growing up, I feel like I tried so many things, but like sucked at everything. Like I didn't.
Sporting things?
No,
or
like
just
skating.
Skating things.
Like I learned how to carve and like I could see people like doing tricks, but like I just did not understand how to do them. And I would try all kinds of things. And one summer, once I made like one thing, a couple of the other things clicked in. And that for me, my process, like it was just like I had nothing and then I had like a bunch of things. And I think that was really cool because I don't know, like nothing made sense. And then all of a sudden it just like something clicked.
Do you remember the first trick that kind of opened the floodgates?
I don't know. I just know like I used to say like I love carving, and because it's just like fun to do. Like you can go into like
It's very soulful.
a bowl and like just go wherever you want to go, and you like pump around, and it's like, I don't know, when you're like a kid, you just have unlimited energy. So just like being annoying in the bowl is the best, was the best.
And so, but what was the first sort of tricks that you really got after when you started to try tricks?
I'm sure it was like 50-50 and like rock fakies. Rock fakies are like so terrifying. I actually learned them.
That's the gnarliest thing when you start skating.
I learned them here in Costa Mesa.
Really?
Like there's like the Volcom Park.
Yeah, okay.
And there's like a little bowl in the back. And it's the scariest trick because like you just imagine like worst case scenario when you haven't done it. And it's like worst case scenario is like going back, hanging up and just like falling back into the abyss. And like,
Yeah.
you know, you don't have like falling backwards. It's just, there's nothing to catch you. So.
And it's slow and awkward, and you're basically coming to a stop and then falling from a dead stop. No momentum, no transition to slide on. You are right. That is a terrifying trick.
It is. But I don't know. Also, just, you know, knowing your skill level and knowing like when you're about ready and like just like having a day where you're like, today's the day I feel it. And being like, I don't know, like sometimes you don't make it and sometimes you slam, and knowing like, okay, got to get back up on the horse and like see how it goes and like have an idea of like how you're going to do something differently or like, I think for me, it really helps like watching someone who knows what they're doing. And then I'm just like, I am like, it's just the only option is it's going to go like that. 'Cause you're just imagining best case scenario. And like, I think, I don't know, in life, like for sure, you always like prepare for the worst, but there's only so much.
Is that a thing that you do in life in general? Like you internalize the worst case scenario, fully prepare for that, but then outwardly work towards the best case scenario?
It depends on what it is. Like, I think with some things for sure, I like go across like all the logistic, like naturally as a human, you're going to think of worst case scenario. Like we're just built to do that. It's like ingrained in us because of survival, because like, you know, when we didn't have food and like shelter, like you are just imagining like like how do I escape from something like a predator, like in the wild, like how do I not die?
Yeah.
And now I think like we do that, but it's like with other things, like I don't know, like I want to make financial plans, and how do I budget correctly so I don't like mess up and then don't get to like do fun stuff.
Yeah.
So like, I don't know, how do I manage? It's like, yeah, it's just like the scales and managing.
Yeah, because I wonder how many other people go to like the levels of. So I've got visa, like I have to always do visas and stuff like that to keep working, and I just went through the visa process, and I'm organizing my life around my visa getting denied and coming up with like, okay, so when I get emailed and said that my visa got denied, I'm going to do this, I'm going to have to sell this, I'm going to have to do that. And just fully go down this mental rabbit hole, which even though it's probably highly unlikely that the worst case scenario is going to happen, but I just can't help mentally prepare for it. I'm like, I'm not going to be let down by this email. When this email comes, I'm going to be completely ready for it. But also, while I'm doing that, I'm just making sure that everything's done correctly. I got the lawyers. We're just like going through. So it's like you're working towards both outcomes at the same time, and then you do get the visa. The thing that you were stressing out is fine, and you know that you've just wasted so much mental equity on planning for this worst case scenario that didn't happen. But it's like,
It's not a waste.
I'm like, yeah, is it a waste? Is it still worth doing?
I think it's good to be like prepared, like what's it called? Like I think we should all be like realistic, or I try to be realistic with myself of like possibility. And obviously I have what I want to happen, but then there, like you're saying, there's this other possibility that it could not work out. But knowing like, okay, like I guess this would be next steps. All you really need to know is like the next right step. You don't need to know 20 steps ahead. I think in theory, like we like to be able to like package everything up and have it like sorted where it's like it's A or B.
It's the illusion of control.
Yeah, but I don't know. It's like you're saying, it's an illusion, and like it doesn't matter where you are in life. Like there is always struggle. There is, like you never know what can happen, and learning that like you just have the ability to like figure it out in like knowing like the next step forward is like the best thing you can do. And it doesn't matter what you're trying.
Yeah, it's kind of goes with whatever it is that you've got going on in your life. So how do you get into skateboarding at 14? It seems late to get into skating to get to where you got to now.
So I got into skating because my younger brother wanted to try it, and we both already had skateboards, but we'd never really learned how to ride them properly. And so we had recently moved to Santa Monica. And
Where from?
We were just living in Glendale. Like we
Okay.
kind of grew up I grew up all over LA, but then Santa Monica became like the place
Home.
I like went to middle school and high school. And it has so much skate history. Like I feel
Oh, yeah.
like I feel lucky is probably not the right word, but like just growing up in this like historically important to skateboarding place, and I feel like it really shaped my view, one of the world, but also like skateboarding for sure. And like seeing like the people at the skate park, like there were some people like that are like legends from that era, and like Pat Noho or like Steve Olson and Bernie O'Dowd. And I feel like when you have people that are in something for a long time, like you like, I don't know, you get influenced. And that like helped shape my perspective of like skateboarding. Also like my home park was a lot of transition. And so naturally I gravitated towards that. Like there are so many street skaters that are from Santa Monica, but like, I don't know, there is like transition skating as well and alive there, but like people making a living out of skateboarding from Santa Monica, there's like only like a few, but it's such an iconic place. And you go down the street and like there's like the Z Boys and like Dogtown, and I don't know, just so much history there, and like iconic skate pools. I just think that stuff is so special. And like skateboarding is also really cool because there's just like lore. Like all this stuff
There's
happened.
deep lore, eh?
And as it happened, everyone has their own take of like how it went, or like this happened first, or it happened like this. And like you talk to some of the legends and they're all amazing, but they're all insane. Like
Yeah.
they're still like, I don't know, they're like older men, but like they're still competing with each other. And it's like so funny, or like just things that they do. I'm like, some of them are like larger than life, and like, wow, we just like walk on the same planet.
And to be from someone that grew up a whole world away, half a world away, I would always watch all skate videos and snowboarding videos and surfing videos and motocross and BMX. And yeah, to be born and raised in, well, not born, but to be raised in Santa Monica, just in the hotbed of skating culture. It's crazy to actually grow up there, and that's your city as well, you know?
Yeah, it is wild. When I go back and visit, it always like trips me out going to like where you grew up, and like just seeing how things change, because like the city just changes so quickly, and I don't know, skateboarding just changes so quickly. And I feel so fortunate to like have that window. And I don't know, like I think about the future generations of skateboarding, and like we're still living or skating with like the people that invented like parts of it, and they're still ripping too. And like, I don't know, I feel like, oh my gosh, I saw like a meme like a while ago. It was like, oh my God, it was like different actors and what they look like now, or just like, and then there was like, or like what they're doing now, and there was like one where like Tony was included, and it showed like him doing a Madonna, but then it was like all the other people, and they're kind of just like older.
Yeah.
But like, I don't know, just Tony's still ripping, and like he's psycho and just can't chill.
Yeah, when you said a lot of those guys are still ripping, I'm like, Tony Hawk is probably standing on the top of a vert ramp right now.
Yeah, it's the right day for it. It's the right time. So I would not be shocked.
Yeah, and that is cool. That there's a whole generation of guys that are still doing it. It's a thing that you can do for life.
It is. I think you do need to take care of yourself to a certain degree.
Yeah.
Like, you know, if you don't use it, you lose it. And I think even for me, like, I'm not like old, but like I am, I don't know, I'm like, I feel like I'm in a place where I'm like, oh, I feel like if I really just didn't take care of myself, I can see how that's like a slippery slope. And I don't know, just like looking at the generations before me of certain people, it's like you see who took care of themselves and who didn't. And I think the generation before me, it was like really like a big part of the culture in skating was like not taking care of yourself and just being like, I don't know, just like living in the moment, like YOLO.
It's very
like partying and
highway to hell.
Yeah.
Just like
rock and roll, like super, like I see how it's glamorous and amazing, but like the cost to do that, I'm like, ooh, I don't got that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, there's that whole attitude of hell's warm and I know people there, so fuck it. You know, like let's do it. I want to live this life and only this lifestyle until it's curtains. And hey, work for Ozzy Osbourne. Like,
I mean, to each their own.
Some people can do it, but there's a lot of people that find out around your age, our age, that it's like, no, I should probably do some yoga and not drink. And life will be good.
Yeah, I just want to feel good, and I want to, and I think there's still so much that I like care about and want to experience that I feel like it's a trade when you do that kind of stuff. It's like you only have room for so much.
Yeah. And I think our generation is so educated. Like I remember my dad at my age.
I don't feel educated.
We definitely are more so than our parents' generation, I would think.
Yeah. I mean, I will say like technology's allowed us to have like such a vast amount of knowledge available at any point, and like we are living in such a crazy time in history.
How much do you think about that?
I do. I feel like sometimes when I think about it like too hard, it just makes me so sad. Because like I think things were like the same way for so long. Obviously, there's like so many like perks of like being alive right now, but like I don't know. I just imagine like 200 years ago, like I don't know. It was just probably like so lush and like amazing, and like I don't know, so many things are like going extinct, and I was just like, oh, it's so heartbreaking. It
is wild to think about. But I mean, I think peak humanity was 2019.
2019?
I don't think you wanted to be alive 200 years ago. I feel like 200...
You wouldn't know the difference though.
Yeah.
Like, okay, so I'm grateful to be alive now. I guess, you know, if we just had a time machine and could like see different like eras of life, like I just feel like that would be so beautiful.
What was the year the iPhone came in? 2007?
I don't know.
I think 06 is probably the move. 06 is probably the year. The iPhone changed everything. Social media changed everything. I mean, I would have been the last, there you go, June 29, 2007. That's when the world changed. But I remember growing up as a kid and having the Nokia 3210 or whatever phone, and the only text that you would get was jokes. That's it. Like people would send you you never texted to communicate at all.
Or the chain like texts where it's like, send this to someone else or
That's-
5 days bad luck.
That's right. Yeah. And Snake was the only game.
Wait,
but-
I'm related to the person that invented Snake.
No.
Yes. Oh, so Nokia is a Finnish company.
Really?
Yeah.
And your dad is from Finland.
My dad lives in Finland. He's from Finland. And one of like our relatives, my family tree is so big on that side. So like I could not tell you how I'm related, but I'm definitely related to the person that invented it.
That is extremely random. When was the last time that you played it?
Ages ago. I think I got like a version of it for my phone, but you know, playing it on a classic Nokia, like I don't think
The
there'll
little
ever be
clicks.
an
That's
experience that's the same.
that's
Also, like
nostalgia.
knowing a T9 keyboard, like people that could text really fast on that, it's one of like the craziest things 'cause
Yeah.
it's so insane.
Yeah, that's gone now.
Yeah.
It's over. But I was in that generation. I remember every single day riding my bike from school to the skate park or school to the dirt jumps and just living in a pre-phone world. Well, pre-internet phone world. Pre-Instagram. I think I was living here when I had Instagram. I was like 22 or 23. Like just went through so long without that in my life. I think that's probably, I don't know, maybe, I don't know whether social media is like a net positive or net negative overall, but I think that was a huge tipping point in society. And then I just think COVID changed so much, like so much about how the world operated, so much about how we interface with relationships, jobs, so much changed. I would say for the worse after COVID. And then we just never got it back, you know?
I hear you. I don't know. I feel like it's really hard to decide. Like I just feel like I can't think in black and white. With each decision, there's always a positive and a negative.
So true. Yeah.
And I will say, as dark as social media can get, like I think it's also amazing. Like I would not have a job
That's
if
true,
it wasn't for social media, because like that was one of the first tools that I was able to go into an office and be like, well, I have a following, so there's interest in what I'm doing. And it was like before that there wasn't really anything to compare to say like, oh, I'm relevant.
No, you're actually so true. And
it's connected like people all over the world and like really made it possible to like, I don't know, like it's definitely like making the world like, you know, where we're all like kind of on the same page, if that makes sense, connected wise.
yeah.
Which is good and bad, but like change is just so inevitable. Like change is the only thing
100%.
that like is definitely gonna happen.
Yeah. No, it's so true.
But change is also like terrifying and scary, and like, yeah, you have to pivot. But I feel like anytime I'm going through something where I'm like, oh, this just like sucks, I also realize like, oh, I'm learning something really important here, and I just have to like listen or like find out what that is.
What taught you that?
Struggle. I don't know. Like I feel like growing up, I don't know. Like I feel like I've always been able to see like the good and the bad in things. And I feel like I've just like as a kid I was just like very logical, but like also like deeply feeling. And I don't know, like you can't take the good without the bad. And so although there are things that like aren't fun, I always know like in time like that, like the feeling never like stays, like it always changes. So whether it's good or bad. And I realized like, I don't know, like trying is so important. Like the more you try, like the more you learn. And so yeah, like like I can think of like every like worst time in my life and like think about like what a great lesson, or like even in that, like it wasn't like I was just like all suffering. Like I think it was also like the good was like so heightened because it was like a roller coaster.
Yeah, I can see that. What were some of the hardest times?
I mean, let me think about that. I mean, just like learning about like just getting through injury, that's really scary. So like when I tore my PCL, that was scary because it was like,
That was the first major one.
yeah. Actually, I smashed my teeth, like my front teeth in my favorite pool, Combi. And it was just so quick and like not like even like a dramatic, or it was a dramatic fall, but like I was just trying something I do all the time and just messed up and went out off the wall too far. And then when I like went to land, I fell like probably like from like 13 or 14 feet in the air to like the bottom of transition. And so like when I took all that impact, like I tapped my face and shattered my front teeth and like busted open my lip. And that was really scary just because like your face is such a huge part of your identity. And then it makes you question like, what am I doing? Is this worth this? But then like, I love skateboarding. Like it's like at that time when I did that, it was like 2011 and that was like all I wanted to do. Like I was dreaming of it being my job. So I think that was like hard. I've had like a lot of bad spells, or not a lot. Considering like I've been so fortunate, but I've definitely taken my fair share of slams and spills. And the worst one being at Elliott's that you mentioned earlier, off camera. But yeah, I went to Elliott's during COVID and we were working on this like Birdhouse team project. And I think I was just so excited to be with like my team and like see people. And they were shooting there for Elliott and we'd gone a couple days. And then I think I got like what's it called? One of the days I went and I like had a migraine. And at that time I was getting a lot of migraines because I was pretty stressed. Like it was COVID and there was just like a lot of unrest in the world and we were isolated. And so it was just a weird time. And I think because of the stress, I was getting migraines. And then I like was there, tried to like do the roll in just because like they're already filming there. So it was like a convenient place to be. And I was like, I think I can just do this. I just have to like go and do it. Like it's kind of one of those things where it's like there's no in between. You can't like work up to it.
Don't.
Yeah. And like I've done like some like mini megas before, but like it'd been so long and I was out of practice. And that one is like really narrow and tall and it's terrifying for sure. And I got the call that they're going back and it was like the last day to try and like the day before I had that migraine. And I think I just like was so low energy from that because you get like a migraine hangover after.
I get them bad.
It sucks.
It's the worst.
Like you literally just want to like cease for like that time.
I've got a kidney problem and so I've only got one kidney and I had a snowboard crash, messed it up, a bunch of surgeries. So anyway, result of that is I have to stay like super hydrated and then I have some issues with my blood pressure from it. So I've got this like hydration blood pressure balance that I've got to be in at all times. And as soon as I drop below that, insane migraine to the point where I just start throwing up. As soon as I like drink water to try and like rehydrate, I drink water, I stand up, I throw up, I go back to bed, I'm more dehydrated, I stand up, drink water, throw up. So I can relate. It is the worst. And for the next day, you've just got like brain fog. The pain is gone, but you're just out of it. So I 1,000,000% can relate.
Yeah, I'll get the aura so I know they're coming on. So just like in my vision, they'll basically be like a crack of light.
Huh.
Like, you know, if you ever like get the flash and like you can see it when you blink. So I can see it even when I'm not blinking. So it's just like in my vision, it's like painful, bright light, even though there's no real like light source. And yeah, then it all goes downhill. I haven't had one for a while and I don't know. I know when I do get it though, it's usually like I get really stressed out and then it comes on after. It's like retroactive.
Yeah.
And then I just try to like be like, okay, what am I doing? I was also I found out I was like eating a bunch of stuff I was allergic to. So once I realized that, I stopped that. And so maybe that was part of it.
I want to say a massive congratulations to the team at Fist Handwear, because starting right now, Fist is proud to be officially distributed in the US through a partnership with Parts Unlimited, bringing their gloves to riders all across the US. That means it is easier than ever to get your hands in a pair, no matter where you are. I've been banging on about how amazing Fist gloves are for the last 10 years, and now it's easier than ever for US riders to get a pair of their own. If you've heard me talk about them on the podcast before, but never tried a pair of your own, now there's no excuse. No matter what you ride, motocross, BMX, road, or even on the job, Fist has a glove designed for every condition, from blazing heat to icy cold. Apart from being the best performing gloves in the world, they also have a design for any flavor, from wild prints and bold graphics to collabs with some of the world's best athletes. And it doesn't just stop at gloves. Fist has moto socks, tees, hoodies, and hats, the full kit and caboodle. I've trusted Fist for over a decade, and I don't plan on changing. Do yourself a favor, join the Fist army today at fisthandwear.co, or head in to your local dealer and tell them that they need to start stocking Fist.
Do you focus on hydration at all with like electrolytes and stuff?
I do, like, I have to.
Okay.
I do drink, like, I drink water. I do drink electrolytes. I love coconut water.
Yeah.
But like, I'm not consistent with it.
All right. I have an electrolyte company. I'll give you some when you leave today. See if
Thank
you
you.
like it, and then I'll get some sent to you. But that's the biggest difference for me. Is like I just have to I have to be extremely hydrated and drink electrolytes every day. But yeah, otherwise dead. And then I need IVs, and I had it in South Africa. I was doing the commentary for World Supercross.
Mm-hmm.
Flew 27 hours, dehydrated on the plane, got there, stood on a roof, filmed one of the TV shows for like 5 hours in the sun in South Africa, went to the hotel room, slept, woke up dead, IV all day, skipped that whole day, woke up the next morning, live TV. So it was just, yeah, it's the worst. Migraines are the worst.
Yeah, I don't envy anyone that gets them.
So
I was skating.
So, you get to the...
What's it called? I went back to the place, or Elliot's house, and he has this crazy compound with the mega ramp and vert ramp and all this stuff. And I still really wanted to do like something for the video, because everyone had been like doing something really gnarly, and like I was like, how do I step up? And it just felt like the most obvious thing, like, oh, if I just do this, like, it's like I've never hit Elliot's before, so it'll be good enough. And I remember asking Elliot for like the pad just to like help, and I don't know. I was like, I shouldn't have been skating. Like, I know that now. Just like after you're sick and your body's not like 100%, like the answer is always just no. But like I said at that time, I wanted to contribute so bad. Like, it really felt like, because of everything going on, it just felt like really positive, but I wasn't in the place to give, and I like tried to push past that. And I feel like I tried to go for it, and I feel like my body just like shut down, and it was almost like I just kind of like let go. Like, it was so weird because it didn't feel like my choice, and I feel like my body told me no, and like I basically didn't get to pump the roll in, and I bug splat into the board catch in front of like all the scaffolding. Mm-hmm. Otherwise I would have just been in the scaffolding, which would have been horrible. And bug splat onto that wall, and then fell like another like over 10 feet, maybe 14, to gravel. And just like after that I was just gasping for air, and I knew what had happened. And somehow I didn't like hit my head and all that, but I knew that I shouldn't get up. Like, I could just feel like that was way too crazy. I shouldn't get up. And eventually everyone got to me, and I don't know, I think we just sort of like, okay, like, need to go to the hospital. Like, definitely. But I was like really like I had adrenaline obviously and was just like really present, and I felt like a weird feeling in my stomach or like in my abdomen, like I was like there's a warm feeling, and so I just was like I was like, oh my God, I really hope that I don't have internal bleeding, because I've seen like just like after photos of friends and they have like crazy scars where because they just open you up.
Yeah, they just open you up. Yeah.
And like that is crazy. Or like that just I was like, oh, that sounds so gnarly. But obviously it's to save your life. So, you know, you gotta do what you gotta do.
Let's tick that box first. Yeah.
But anyway, they ended up like grabbing like my friends grabbed like a fold out table and then put me on it like a stretcher.
Yeah.
And then moved me from the gap, because in between the gap at that point there was a car that they were skating for this project.
Yeah.
And
yeah, they had like the van or something up there.
Yeah, there's a van, and they had just like built it out to skate, kind of like Mad Max style.
Mm-hmm.
And on the inside it was empty. And so they forklifted the car down and then put me in the back of the car, and we went off to the hospital. We went off to like one of the better hospitals, because there's like, I don't know, just being in skating, like I feel like there's enough people that are familiar with hospitals that they're like, they send you, they're like, there's the know-how of like, oh, you should go here.
Yeah.
And went to the hospital, and the nurse was just like so grumpy, because they're like, you shouldn't be doing this. And
Yeah.
I don't know, even in the car ride.
You're a girl.
It's not that. It was more like she was mad that we didn't call an ambulance.
Yes.
Because we just showed up, and like it was very DIY'd. And I don't know, like I feel like for sure you can, but it's like kind of up to your discretion of like what's the right call for you. And I was like, I was present, and I knew like the people that I was with, like I trusted them to like handle me, or like handle me is not the right word, but like, you know, get me to where I needed to go and like do it safely. And even in the back of the van, I had to have like my friends like sit on each side of me, because like I remember like my like leg
moving.
Yeah, my leg felt weird, and I was like, I really need like stability, like something's like off, but I didn't know what it was. And I got to the hospital, and I went in by myself, because like it was COVID and you weren't allowed to like have anyone in there unless you're dying or like having a child. And that was really scary. And they just like did some scans, and they're basically like, they gave me the rundown of like, okay, so like you broke your back and your femur, like we're going to send you off to the trauma hospital, and then they'll go from there. And so I was like, oh my God, like, does this mean I have to get back surgery? But fortunately, like the thing that broke on my back, like on your spine, there's these like little things that come out the side.
Like the tabs on the side of your vertebrae.
Yeah, so I just like snapped one of those or something. And so that's like, they don't do anything for that, but I was just like, I don't know, anytime you have to deal with the spine, I feel like it can be like pretty gnarly. There's a lot going on there of important stuff. And so luckily I didn't have to do that, but then I did have to get surgery on my femur. And I wasn't sure if they were like going to give me a new hip or like what they were going to do. And I was like, does this mean I still have like a career? Like, will I be able to like have a normal life after this? And like, cause it was COVID, like I feel like everyone was just like, I don't know, or the hospital's just busy, but like no one gives you answers. Like, it's just like, I don't know, I felt like I was like in the dark, and I'm not sure if that's normal or not, but.
Well, I think that when you're in that trauma ER space, they're just trying to stabilize, and there's like a conveyor belt of just ruined bodies that are coming through the hospital, and they're just like, right, get them out. So it's probably a little bit of that, and then just not having the context of like just how important your career is to your life, you know? Yeah,
that is true. It was a scary place to be. I knew I was in the right place, but it just, you know, when there's that much uncertainty, like it's just hard, and not being around your community or like
being
having
alone.
People that you know with you, it's just isolating. And went to the other hospital, and I remember I got to the other hospital and I still hadn't taken any like pain medicine, because I was like,
true.
I was basically like, if I have to go to surgery, like sometimes they're very particular about like, oh, did you do this? Or like, have
Yeah.
you eaten or have you done this? And
Yeah.
I knew like if I had to get surgery, I just wanted all the things to happen as soon as possible, in the sense that like the sooner you get patched up, the sooner you'll be on the mend. And later on, they're just like, you could just take it. It's going to be fine. And I was like, I don't really feel like I need to. Like, I'm not in pain. And they're just like, you will feel pain at some point. Like, maybe it's the adrenaline that was still going. But it was like over 12 hours that I like didn't have anything and I wasn't like in pain.
That's insane. So with a broken femur and a broken back, no painkillers
No.
for 12 hours.
And I'm not sure, like, I don't know, maybe just my pain tolerance is high, but I wasn't like, it's not like I was walking, I was just laying. So I was like, it feels weird, but nothing's like out of place. And so like, it wasn't bugging me. Like the stress of it all was like way worse than the physical pain. So that was like really interesting.
That is insane. I feel like I mean, I know so many people that have broken their femurs and it's just the most painful thing they've ever been through.
Oh my gosh. I'm so grateful. I really do. Okay. Like there's like Hall of Me and like people try to show their slams and stuff. I don't ever want to see any of that. Like when
Have you ever seen the crash?
Yeah, I have. It took me like a year to watch it, but I was just worried that I would like feel traumatized again. But it was actually like better. Like obviously it's a horrible slam, but like it didn't make me feel as bad as I thought it would. But it's horrible. Like honestly, like the crash itself, like watching it isn't hard, but hearing like the gasping and the sounds, like I feel like that's like the sound of like people don't make that sound by like I couldn't replicate the sound that I was making.
Yes. Yeah.
Like you just have to be.
You've got to be fucked up to make those noises, essentially, is what you're trying to say.
Like it was horrible. Like, yeah, the sound is like the most like traumatizing part of like the whole clip.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, it's gnarly. So you only did your back and your femur in that?
Yeah.
Nothing internal, no concussion?
I mean, I had like a bruised elbow, but it was like
mellow compared to the rest.
Yeah, and that was the first time I broke bones like in my whole career. So that was like in 2020 and you know, I got my pro board in 2017, started skating in 2007. So like it was a really solid go. And to that I would just equate like knowing how to fall and like, you know, pushing yourself, you know, I don't know, like there's some people that just like Hail Mary and like will put anything down, like just try to like make things work. But I feel like I've always like taken my time and like learned how to bail something so that I could try it safely. There's always a level of like having to go for it completely at some point. But I don't know. I feel like I always just like I always gauge myself.
Take the smart approach.
Like incremental, like improvement.
Yeah, as opposed to just the full send.
Yeah, but like people that are full send, like I don't know, like there's some people that can do that, and they're just like so amazing because they just like the ability for like a jump in ability is like huge.
Yeah, well, Kevin Praza, when he was here, he said that. What was the name of the trick that he did for best trick when he won? First time he ever did it. It was like a yeah, and then he landed fakie, and he'd never done it before. And the first, like, never done it before. I think he said he'd done it on a quarter, but never on a box. And he was like, he said, I had the first bit and the end bit in my head figured out. But there was a bit in the middle where I couldn't visualize it. I didn't know how it would feel. I didn't know what I had to do. And then he said after Pat Casey died, it was best trick after that. And he was like, fuck it. Pat would do this trick. And he just did it. And first go, pulled it off. I think he ended up getting third from that trick at X Games. But yeah, that was just like one of those just very rare times where someone was able to pull something off that they'd like never done before. But I can't fathom that on the biggest stage for, the biggest medal in the sport, and you just go out and one-shot something. Then he gave his front wheel to one of his competitors so that he could do his second run because he busted his front wheel in his first run.
Oh my god.
It's like, bro, that's like wild.
Yeah, that is crazy. I will say like visualization is so important.
How clear is your visualization, like mental clarity? Can you see things like one-to-one?
Yeah, I feel like I can, but that doesn't mean like, I don't know, like there's a lot that has to line up for you to like get to like the finished product. But like I feel like there's a lot of things that I can try, and like the last part is just like committing to them, or like being open to like basically like slamming. Like I feel like there's certain times like with the like for example with the loop that I was just like, I'm gonna go for it, and I'm open to like the slam. I don't know, like I didn't watch any slam videos of that until after, but like in my mind it was only possible, like I was just only visualizing how to make it and like how it could work, and I was like, oh, this is what I have to do, but if it doesn't turn out that way, I don't know what that's gonna look like, but I'm open to it.
That's a wild headspace. How did you decide to do it? What made you want to do it?
I knew I just wanted to like go and see it in person and then see if I felt like it was possible. Like Tony Hawk had asked me like, do you want to do the loop? And I always gave him the answer of like, I don't know, I just need to like see it. Like he's like, do you want to do it? And like when I look at it, I'm just like, I don't know, it doesn't look like a good time.
Yeah.
It's like I don't know. It's not like anything else in skating. It's not very relatable. But growing up skating transition and like going upside down, whether it's like inverts or like on a clamshell,
Yeah.
like I am like that part doesn't bother me. But obviously it's like not nearly as dangerous as like
dramatic.
the loop.
Yeah. Can you pull that up, Griff? Lizzie Armanto, the loop. Is there any good videos on YouTube?
There's only one like iPhone clip of it.
Really?
Yeah, like it wasn't actually like filmed on like a fancy camera.
Really?
Yeah, it was because like they had an AI event, or a AR event, and after like I was skating during the event, and then it got to the point where they started like pulling out all the pads and like people were just doing it, but I didn't have the technique, and so I was like, well, I'm not. Without the technique, you're not just gonna go. I'm not gonna go for it. And after the event, I like went back in the warehouse and like started warming up on the ramp, and then I was like, okay, I'm gonna go back out there and start trying again for like myself. Like it was there, like doing the loop. There's no like, I don't know. Like I don't know. I feel like with so many tricks, it's like you just do it because you want to. And I think I was like, I feel like if I just figure out the technique, I could do it. And at some point, like I started trying again and I figured out the technique. And at that point, I was like, I have to decide right now if I'm going to like do it or not, because I'm only going to get closer from here. And like, I don't want to get to the last part of it and then be like, wait, this is like crazy. I don't want to do it. Because, yeah, I don't know, just like every try on that, you're kind of like gambling. Because like if you mess up one way or the other, like it could be bad.
Yeah, yeah. Let's watch it real quick. I just want to. Oh.
So I tried it like 5 or 6 times without the pads.
Without knee pads?
No, without like
the pads on the
there's
ground.
These like right there. There's like a gray giant pad, like stunt pad, and so they fill it up with all those pads, so you can like try it, and it's basically like a big foam pit.
So where is this? Is this at Tony's?
This is at Tony, just like in the parking lot.
Isn't it always set up there?
No, this is something that they just take out.
Yeah, okay. That's crazy. So what's the technique? Like how hard is it to do?
You literally just do not pump. Like you literally just like pretend You are like an action figure.
Just
and
straight
have
leg.
no, not straight leg, but like you bend your knees and like do not pump. Like you just like stay like this. And like once you go down the roll-in, like you pump the roll-in and then you go to the loop and you just like hold. Which is so counterintuitive because normally like on any transition you go up and you like do a little pump. But with this, you just do nothing, which it's so simple and like I don't know, like stupid, but
it goes against everything you've practiced your entire life in skating.
Yeah. And like it doesn't matter how good of a skateboarder you are, like going back to the basics and like forgetting everything you ever know, like you were ever told, like it's still really hard to do. Like I don't know, essentially like if you're a beginner, you might have like the same amount of luck trying this, but
as someone that's skated forever.
Yeah, because it's like the loop is taking out like amazing, like legendary, super talented skaters.
They just haven't been able to do it.
Yeah, because they just like took a bad slam on it or like couldn't figure it out.
It's great. That's wild. So what did it do for your profile when this went? When was this?
This was 2017.
Okay. Was this like a
I think it was 2017. I think this
outside
was
of skating
2017
moment?
at least. Maybe it was 2018.
Was it pretty big outside of skating? Like did it
It was. It
blow
like
up?
it made it onto like some news channels and stuff. But I don't know, it was cool. Vans did like a campaign with it. I feel like it was just huge because like I think it was a very easy thing for people outside of skating to understand.
Yeah.
And like at that point, there's still only like 24 people to do the loop.
Really?
Yeah. And like none of, like it was all men. There still hasn't been any women to do it. And like, I don't know, I think there's so many people that can do it, but it takes like a lot of guts to just go for it. Like it is scary and it can be like it's such a gamble. Like I think the hard thing about the loop is like the room for error is so high.
Yeah.
Whereas like most other tricks, you can like incrementally like work up to them.
This is just ascend.
Kind of, yeah.
You can't half do the loop. Can't, like,
I mean, you can like skate it with all the pads in it, but then like once they take out the pads, like on the first one I did, on the first go, I fully like bailed, and like luckily I like went all the way through and knee slid to the other side, but like I'm sure people have done the same thing and just like not went the right way.
Yeah. So to go back to the mega ramp crash, how we got onto that was you were saying that you've been able to find good in the bad.
Yeah.
Was there something good that came out of that whole experience?
I think it was like me having like realizing like when my body's just like no, like I don't know, it was so obviously it was like a horrible slam, but like I had never really wanted to do the mega ramp. Like I didn't care about it. Like it was just like happenstance that they were like filming this project and like Elliot has this thing and it is his thing. Like he loves the mega ramp. But it's not my passion. And like I think at that point, like I still, like I said, I never like was like, oh, I want to do the mega ramp. Like I never cared. I always thought it was like gnarly, but not something that appealed to me. And because I just wanted to contribute and I don't know, I don't know, like there was no reason to not do it. But now I just realized like I don't need to do everything or like, I don't know, I just need to like listen to myself. Like I can't like not have that conversation with myself ever. And I think it also made me like realize how strong like our bodies are. Like I was still like, after that I still went to the Olympics and like that was 2020. Like the Olympics were supposed to be that year.
That's right. And then they got moved to 2021.
Yeah. So like 8 months later I competed.
Wow.
Which is like an incredibly quick recovery. But I would just like, I feel like in that healing, like I don't know, like I just like learned so much about myself, and like it made COVID like it gave me a focus in a time where like it was kind of hard to know what to do, and I just knew exactly what I needed to do, and I just like did PT and like tried to heal, and I don't know, just made my world very like straightforward. And like it was really nice to be home, be in the same place. I never felt like I was missing out because everyone was home.
That's a cool takeaway. That it was quite a weird time for that. A lot of people lost focus. A lot of people lost drive and purpose, and a lot of things were taken away from people in that time. But something was taken away, but also given to you at the same time. Like you got taken away the ability to skate and do all of these other things, but then you're also given a very singular focus. And then with the Olympics coming up, yeah, you just might not have had the performance you did at the Olympics without that.
I mean, yeah, I definitely like, I was able to skate in the Olympics, and it wasn't like my pinnacle best. Like I was still very much like I relearned like all those things up until that point, and I skated the best I possibly could have. And like even my goal for the Olympics was just to like represent skateboarding in the way that I know it, because like to me skateboarding isn't just like competition. Like it's my lifestyle, and like I love the community, and I love like the artistic expression. And so going there to like just skate my best was exactly what I'd always like wanted. And like a lot of like I got to like design my uniform, and that was like a big moment and really cool, and like another form of creative expression. And like, and also crazy to go to like the Olympics like in Japan, which is like one of my favorite countries.
It's the best, eh?
And like so many of my friends are like close friends are from there. And so like I feel like in so many ways it was like beautiful. It was obviously like weird because it was like COVID times, and it felt like sports prison. Like just had all these athletes in one place, and they weren't allowed to leave, and people are like either like so stressed out or like opposite, like where they're just like so like relieved, and everyone was like afraid to like talk to each other or be close to like anybody. Like it was such a bizarre time, but also so beautiful that they were able to make it happen. And I don't know, just like skateboarding is in the Olympics. Like that's crazy. I never really imagined going there, like going to the Olympics for skateboarding. And I feel like it's cool to represent something that that's so close to like my heart in front of like the world, because so many people see that. And I feel like skateboarding has given me so much, and like you don't really need that much like to do it. Like it's like to get a skateboard, all you need, like you need a skateboard and like some flat ground. And like if you can learn to skate, like you can see your world differently. Like I can't walk down the street without like looking at the sidewalk and like noticing the cracks, or noticing like the architecture in a building that would be like some like relevant to transition, or like seeing, I don't know, like, you know, people like do fingerboarding, and like you just see like mini skate parks everywhere, like in like when you're washing dishes. Like it's like it really just changes your world. And I love like, I don't know, I feel like it expresses like, I don't know, like the creativity in you, like just being able to imagine different. And I think, you know, like I think we're meant to like create and imagine, and like I think we all need that in our lives. And it doesn't have to be like in skateboarding, it can be in whatever. Like just life is so much more fun when you can imagine like a different world, or imagine all the possibilities. Like you got to imagine like all the different versions of yourself, and like who you are, where you want to be, where you want to go.
Yeah, it's so cool. I get from this that you were just born an artist. Like that's your personality, that's your thing. And skateboarding is just one of the mediums, one of the brushes that you use. Like you just have such a cool perspective on life in general and the creative act of living a life?
I mean, I think we all have this. Like, I think
some people have it more than others, though.
for sure we're all like different, but that's like beautiful. Like, I love being around people that are like opposite of me because it gives me different perspective. And like, I don't know, like, as much as like I don't like struggle is great in like changing your perspective. And like, there's so much power in our own experiences that like we can, like, you know, we have so many choices to make in a day. And like the way you show up is like one of the biggest ones.
And that leads to the version of you that shows up each day leads to the decisions that you make. And that's what shapes the way you live your life, essentially.
I think so. I feel like I'm getting like
many.
I'm getting too deep. I don't know if I'm able to keep up.
No, you're right. And there is like a version of you that walks into the world every day, and then you're just given so many situations to react to. And it's like that version of you is going to dictate, like, do you make the absolute best call? Do you make it out of kindness and goodness, or are you like bitter and negative? And like the way that you show up completely dictates your experience and the way that people interface back to you. So to like have that perspective and live from that place is extremely powerful. Where does that even come from, do you think? Have you learned any of it? It's very Buddhist. It's very Eastern, you know?
I don't know.
Because I think it's possible to learn all of this just through struggle and through your own journey, you know? Like, I don't think you explicitly have to learn these things.
Yeah, like I don't know if there's like, yeah, I don't know. I'm not sure how. I feel like I said, just growing up, I like was just like very like logical. Like I was not an outspoken person. I was more of a listener. And so maybe through that, and then like getting into skateboarding, and you know, like when you're 14, like the boys are like not on your level like mentally at all, and they're just like horrible. Like I don't know, like I had friends that were guys and I would hang out, but like to actually like really be close to them, it's just like totally different like realms.
Yeah.
And so like, you know, I would hang out, but then like I would also like end up skating with a lot of the older guys because they're like just trying like basic tricks, and like I kind of was at the same level of ability. And I don't know, at some point I was like skating with a lot of the legends and like going to the Vans combi and just skating like old guy session, and they're just like still insane, like pushing themselves, but then like competing with like themselves, which is like so funny. Apparently that never stops.
Yeah.
And I don't know, all of them they've all lived crazy lives. Like when I hear like the stories, and they're all amazing storytellers.
Yeah.
Like I feel like it's just so, I don't know, I love listening to them because they're like great at doing, and they love talking, and I don't know, maybe that like helped. And I also knew like, I don't know, I was still like younger, and like, I don't know, over time you like accumulate all these experiences. But I think also hearing about their experiences made me like present with like, oh, these are like how these stories happen, and like watching that like unfold.
Like you're there in the moment.
Yeah.
Like those same stories from the future are unfolding right now.
Exactly. So like when they talk about like back in the day at the contest, and like this was happening, and then this person like showed up, and then I don't know, all this like drama happened, and then they're like ripping, and then they're not ripping, and I don't know, just it made me realize like when I went to contests or like was hanging out with people, like, oh, this is like the story that like everyone like, or I don't know, like for me that's how I like was like, oh, this is like the real life version of it, the right now version of it.
Yeah. And I'm sure just being a girl changed the experience as well. So there's so many guys that grew up doing what you did from a similar age and then following the same route. But just by them being guys, their experience was completely different. So a guy growing up in the same lane is not going to have the same experiences that you had through skateboarding. So it's like skateboarding has shaped you differently than most people because you were very unique to grow up doing what you did.
For sure. I definitely think it gave me like a thicker skin or like always like, I don't know, sometimes, I don't know, growing up in my household, I feel like we're like using the right words was like very important. Like, but like at the skate park, like people kind of just say whatever. And so knowing the intentions behind the words was like more valuable there.
How do you mean?
Like, I feel like at the skate park, like it's just like skateboarding is just very immature.
Yeah.
And so like also they show a lot of like tough love. Like, so like if they're making fun of you, it's because they like
It's because they like you.
And so knowing that it like helps, but then also like being made fun of, like it's like, I don't know, like if you're taking that personal, like that sucks. And that like, I don't know, also there is times where people are just like horrible and saying like bad things because someone's being worse to them. And that doesn't like devalue like, oh, why you're getting punished. But knowing that definitely like makes it feel like a little bit less bad for me. But I don't know, just like people being negative for the sake of it is just, yeah, that's never gonna feel good.
So your parents were very big on like speaking properly, not saying like bad things. Is that sort of what you're saying? Then you go to the skate park and then dude just like, fuck this, fuck that, you suck. And so the experience was very outside of what your parents would say is acceptable. But then you also knew that these people were good people and they were cool and they were your friends. So like it gave you a different level of, I guess, appreciation for like people's intentions behind what they say or do.
Yeah, going to the skate park exposed me to like so many different types of like life.
Yeah.
And like how you can live. And
yeah,
it's just like, you know, everyone grows up in like a different house and like you don't realize that until you like go to someone else's house.
Yeah. No, it's so true. Yeah, I can see how it's funny when you said the intentions behind what people say. Because I always say to people, don't take what people say as the thing. Take the way they're saying it and the intentions behind what they're saying. You know, people will show you who they are with their intentions. People can say a shitty thing, but not have any shitty intentions at all. Mm-hmm. And sometimes that's like very hard to keep perspective of, I think.
Yeah. I mean, also just like when you get a bunch of people together that are from different places, like I'm sure, you know, like some things that like people say in Australia here would be like, it would be like, like, I don't know what you're saying. Or if you're saying what I think you're saying, like you want to fight. Like, I don't even know.
Yeah.
Just like the sense of humor or like, word choice.
Yeah. My wife's Russian and I had to learn in a completely different culture. Like just her. And it's funny. So many people will hang around her and just be like, I feel like she likes me. I'm so glad they're like stressed on whether or not she liked them because she just gives nothing away. Like Americans or Western people, it's like it's very clear. Like if they're trying to act happy, they're like smiling there's like all these social cues that are going on even in our conversation. Like, yeah, this is awesome. We're having a good time. Whereas it's just like, it's just so blank. She's having the same amount of fun. She's enjoying it the exact same as what we are, but there's no outward expression of it. And because it's just it's a fully cultural thing. And they say to smile without a reason is to be a fool. And that's just their whole, if it's not genuinely making you laugh, don't smile. Mm-hmm. Doesn't mean it's bad. Doesn't mean it's not a good experience. And yeah, there's so many ways that people are experiencing life that are completely different to your experience. And it's extremely hard to get that perspective, I think.
That's true. I think also when you have like a bunch of people from different places, like your world of like what's possible opens up. Because like when you're from a bunch of different backgrounds, like you just like, I don't know what's it called. Like you have a bunch of different interests. So like what can happen is like more possibility.
Yeah, just more options. Like you just have more things that you could see being possible, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
What was your parents' backgrounds? What was the influence of that in your life? So your dad's from Finland, your mum's American but Filipino.
Yeah.
That's a melting pot.
So my dad came here on vacation and met my mom, and then just he never left. And so he moved out here, and then they got married, and later on had me. And like their passion, like I think they were both really interested in like cars. And eventually, I think my mom was like working in like kind of music, and then like became kind of like a engineer, and then started going to school for like that stuff, and then she started getting into like building out studios. And so now that's what she does. And I see like a lot of similarities in that like both of those are like male
Dominated
like
Yeah.
industries or hobby, like, and I don't know, she's just like has her own like interests and style, and is also very like passionate. And like with my dad, he's just like, I think he's just always had a passion for cars, or just, and being in Southern California, like there's so many cool cars here. And I like when I was little, I remember like we used to just like drive around. Like my parents would drive from like LA to San Clemente or up to Santa Barbara. And like, I don't know, that's like core memory of like just me always being in the car.
Yeah, right. Did you go to the car shows they used to have on like Del Mar and San Clemente and stuff?
We definitely went to car shows. I don't remember which one. Like, I know we went to ones in Ventura. We went to like the LA Auto Show. We definitely went to swap meets. Like, but I don't know. I was like so young. It's like hard to like really recall. And eventually they had my brother, and like when I first like had a brother, I was so bummed because I was like,
How old were you?
I was 4. Wait, no. I was 6 when they had my brother. But like when they had him, I just remember like I needed like all the attention. So like that was like, why'd they do that? But I love having a brother. Like my brother and I are really close. His birthday is like 2 weeks away from mine. And so like, although he's like 6 years younger than me, I see a lot of similarities in our personality. And yeah, he's like, I'm so grateful to like have my family.
Are you guys all still close then?
Yeah. And eventually my parents like split, and my dad moved back to Finland, and my mom got remarried. And when they split, we moved to Santa Monica. So that was like a really, like, I feel like that happening like in a weird way, like eventually like I found skateboarding, because like if we didn't live in Santa Monica, like I feel like my brother wanted to try it because like it was a part of the culture there.
Yeah.
And I was so fortunate to have like an amazing skate park. Like the Cove skate park in Santa Monica was one of the older parks on the west side, and they were one of the first parks to get lights. And so like people from like all over Los Angeles would come. And so the scene there was like, it was happening. And then eventually like these other parks would be made, like Venice got its expansion, and it's like has all the bowls like we know it now.
Yeah.
And then there was Culver and Stoner, and I don't know, there's like all these other parks that are like being built up too, but
There's so much history, isn't there?
there is.
In that area. Like even you just think about Venice, it's just so iconic. Just throughout culture globally. That was just your local spot.
Kinda. I mean, I feel like I wasn't allowed to go to Venice as much because it was like a little bit more sketchy. And being like a young girl, like it's just maybe not the safest place. But I don't know. Eventually when that park came up, I would go to the park. And once you're in the skate park, Like no one's really gonna mess with you, but I don't know.
Just
It's
getting
a
there.
hectic place. Also, like it's so weird growing up in a city that's a tourist destination because there's the local community, but there's also like
Yeah.
all these visitors from all over the world. So it's kind of like I don't know, like everyone's on vacation there all year round. Like you go to the Santa Monica Pier and it's psycho.
It's just people taking photos. There's just everyone's a tourist.
Yeah.
And then there's locals taking advantage of the tourists. And then there's that whole world.
It's wild.
It is pretty crazy. Yeah, when people go, I mean, I remember going there for the first time when I come here. And I was just like, this is insane. I just remember Californication.
The song by
No, the show.
Wait,
Do you remember the show?
No, I don't know it.
Dude, you never watched that show?
I didn't grow up watching that much TV.
That's iconic.
Well, so my mom worked in like I don't know the TV industry or like like movie industry.
Yeah, okay.
And I think she just like never really like she didn't want us to be like on like our phone or like when we eventually had she didn't want us to like be on the TV the whole time or on the computer the whole time. And eventually like when we had phones, there was like a lot of rules. Like I grew up in a house where like now that I see some of my friends, I'm like, oh, it was really strict. Like I used to have to plan out if I was going to go to a friend's house like a week ahead of time. And so I would ask my best friend Alicia if I could come over next weekend. And she'd be like, I don't know, just ask me like the day of.
You're like, that doesn't work in my house.
Which did not work in my house. And so I'd be like, I'm going to go to Alicia's house next weekend. And then they're like, okay. And then on Friday, I had already made these plans with my parents. But then like on Friday, I would be like, hey, Alicia, can I spend the night this weekend? And the answer was usually yes. But it was just so like I could make the plans and then cancel them. But I couldn't just like decide to go that day.
Yeah, right. Why is that? That was just the way your mum was.
Just my house was like strict in comparison. Like we had to do all our chores and I remember there was times where I wanted to skate the Vans Park here in Orange, and eventually I learned how to drive. Eventually, I got my license at 18. And my mom had to work, and she would go to work at like 5 a.m. And she's like, well, if you want the car after school, you have to drive me to work. And so I would drive my mom across LA I would get up at like 4 or 5 in the morning, drive her, and then come back home and then go to school. And then drive an hour. I'd drive like an hour and a half in traffic to get to the skate park and go skate for the rest of the day.
That's cool though.
Yeah, it is cool in retrospect, but I'm like, I think about it now. I can't like, dude, waking up at 4 a.m. unless there's a flight, like, good luck.
I always think about the early days of even doing this, and I'm like, I don't know if I'd do that again.
But I think there's like that passion there. Like you have the drive. Like I think when you feel something that's like so important to you, like waking up early, like there's no discussion. It's like, I would absolutely do that. Or like, I don't know, like if somebody that is close to you is in need, it doesn't matter what time of day you're going to like help them. It doesn't matter how inconvenient. Like if you're in Timbuktu and need help, like,
unless it's picking someone up from LAX, that I won't do.
I don't know. It's not that bad. It's just like, as long as... See, the thing is with LA traffic, like I live in San Diego now.
Okay, so you're down that way.
And last year I was living in LA. I love LA. Like LA is my home. I grew up there. There's so many like amazing things to do, places to eat. And like a bunch of my friends are there. But for my skating, like San Diego is just like the best place. There's nowhere else that can compare. And like my friends are there. But I still go up to LA and I just like make the whole day of it. And then just wait till traffic. Otherwise, you just spend your day driving. So like as long as you like plan ahead and like know, have a good plan in place, it's not that bad.
I don't think I've ever got the best of LA. I lived in West Hollywood for
That's your problem.
a year. Yeah.
Dude, like that's like being in like, I don't know, like it doesned matter where you to get into West Hollywood, it's like 45 minutes from wherever direction.
Yeah. Yeah. I remember I had a friend that lived there, and they had a really cool apartment. It was right near the Comedy Store. So
Okay.
it was like
It's in like the heart of like that zone.
Yeah, it was like 50 yards from the Comedy Store. And it was very cool in some ways, but I was also just a random Aussie dude that didn't know anybody. I didn't work in any industry there. Like I worked in the motorsport world. So everything was flying out into different places and going to events. And I never got an LA crew. I never really met anyone that was from there. Like I always felt like a tourist in that city. And I just never feel like I fully experienced it because people like yourself, people that have grew up there, were raised there, they know it. They're like, it's the best place ever. I'm like, I feel like you would really have to know it to get that experience.
I will say, like, if I was in that zone, it would be hard for me.
Okay.
Like,
so it wasn't just me.
Yeah. Like, I think it just like that's like living in New York. And like, I know I am not a New York person. I can go to New York for a couple days, but like, I need space. Like, whether it's like physical space away from people or nature space, like it's just the pace or like whatever energy is going on there. Like, it's just very overstimulating.
Yeah.
And I think if you come from a big city like New York, like you would want to be in the hub in like that.
Yeah.
Because like you don't have to drive far and there's always like things happening and great restaurants. Like it's very lively and like city culture. But I don't know, even growing up in Santa Monica, like I'm not like I don't know. I feel like I'm not that social, but I do love my friends. But I'm like also a homebody. Sometimes I just feel like I don't know what I am because I just go in phases.
What do they call it? Ambiverts?
Ambivert?
Ambiverts, yeah.
I think that could be me, but I don't know. To do some reflecting.
Yeah. No, I learned about that term because I would say that I'm an extrovert and then my wife's like, no, you're not. I'm like, okay, you're the first person that's ever said that. She's also the person that knows me the best. But I'm like, you think? She's like, no, you love being at home in the quiet, like doing fully your own thing. Like I just love in the morning getting up by myself. Everyone else stays in bed and I've just got like 45 minutes to an hour by myself, complete quiet, coffee, journal, just like nothing. That to me is the best.
But if you had that 24/7,
yeah, see,
the balance would be off.
Yeah.
So the thing is with like introvert, extrovert, my understanding would be if you get energy by being away from people, that's being introverted. If you get energy from being in a group or with people, that's extrovert. It has nothing to do with like liking being around people or not.
Yeah, true.
And like, I think I have a few friends where like when I'm with them, it's like restorative and like I feel like energy. Like it's like it gives me energy. But then for the most part, I find like interaction draining. I can be social, but like it doesn't feel like first nature for me. And like being like public facing, I think that can be like confusing for people because it's like, well, how are you an introvert but then an extrovert? And like, I don't know, finding out where you get energy from and how can like an introvert do something like be in a bunch of people?
Yeah.
Which they can. It's just like they don't get energized from it. It's like draining. And that doesn't mean that it's bad either. Like there's plenty of things that I do that's like draining, but I love doing it.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know, like if you're like trying to learn a trick, like
yeah, skating.
Yeah, just skating can be physically draining. But like when I go home at the end of the day, I could have had the best time doing that. So, I don't know, it's fun tangent.
Yeah. What's up, Gypsy Gang? I'm so stoked to announce my new flannel with Dixxon. You can check the link in the description below or head to Dixxon.com. But we've been working on this for about a year now. I picked all the colors, I picked the design, I picked the patterns, and it's finally alive. If you've worn Dixxon flannels before, you know that they are the best flannels that you can buy. And if you've never had the privilege of owning a Dixxon flannel of your own, this is about as good as an excuse as you will ever have. I've been wearing this flannel all through Japan. I've been wearing it on the podcast. It's well and truly wear tested. Remember, head to Dixxon.com, click the link in the description to cop the all new Gypsy Tales signature Dixxon flannel. I always find it strange. I was actually just thinking about this today. I've got a friend and he, for whatever reason, he's just like, I can, no matter what mood I'm in, no matter what like place I'm in, how busy I am, how stressed I am. If he rolls up this afternoon and we start hanging out, I'm going to be pissing myself laughing and just cracking the most ridiculous joke. Like he just brings that person out of me, but I can't like turn that person on. I just can't be.
You could.
I don't know.
But I think it's like a skill that you'd have to harness.
Yeah, I really genuinely wonder that. Like I wonder if there's maybe some other people that kind of like bring that side out of me. And it's funny, my wife will laugh about that. She's like, it's so funny how you can be like that with him and that's it. But it's just like he's got this like a very weird same sense of humor. He's like kind of the only one
gets you.
seen all the same movies, same music, like just but silly, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it's like if I would love to be like that guy around other people, but I'm like, I just don't know. Like the people just can't match that same energy.
But I think that's the context. So like you guys have like, you know, the same, like you were saying, you see the same movies and like have a similar humor. And so the context of like what you're throwing, he's catching.
Yeah.
And you can go back and forth.
Yeah, it's just, vice versa.
So it's always just knowing your audience.
Maybe, yeah.
So like you can be funny and silly in different ways with different audiences, but you just have to know what's the context. Like I know I don't really watch that much like TV and like that stuff. And so like when my friends get together and they're going off about like a reality show, I'm like, yeah, like I'm just sitting there like nothing you're saying makes any sense because like I don't.
You just don't have the
I don't
context.
follow.
Yeah.
But like when they throw out silly jokes and stuff, like I know what they're like getting at. And like you can have a fun. I mean, oh my God, I've like spent a lot of time with people that don't speak the same language. And like, dude, when everyone starts laughing at a joke, I will laugh too and have no idea what's going on.
Whereabouts are you spending that time?
It was like in the past, but
Yeah.
I don't know. It was just like I just know that there was like a point where I was like, I am laughing at jokes and I like
Don't even speak the language.
yeah. But I think laughter is just like
Yeah.
it's contagious.
You could feel that energy.
Yeah, and then also like, you know, when you spend time with people, like even though they don't speak the same language, interactions are still the same. So like when you see people, like I don't know, like in any other country, like when you see people, you greet them, you say, "How's it going?" and you like start catching up.
Yeah.
Like you don't have to speak the same language to understand that.
That's what's happening right now.
Yeah. Which is also like skating is so cool because like you can go anywhere and like have a session and learn something from someone, but like no talking's happened or like you can't have like a full conversation with them because
Yeah. You could go to a skate park in South Korea, not speak any Korean, and skate all day, and it would basically be the same session that you would have in Santa Monica, essentially.
Yeah. And that's so beautiful.
That is crazy cool to do that.
And like you can also just like relate. Like you could go to the skate park and skate with someone who's like, you know, a child, or you could skate with someone who's like a full grown adult. Like, I don't know. It's so cool that there can like and be on the same like page of fun.
Yep.
Because like in most things you don't get to do that. Like usually it's like, oh, things get all separated. Like if you play basketball, like you're on a team and everyone's kind of similar. Or like, I don't know, like a lot of things just get divided up, which I don't know. I think skateboarding is just so cool. Like it's such an amazing thing to get into, to be able to relate to like, and like have an interaction with someone who's like different. I think it just goes back to the thing of like opening up your world with people who are different or being open and understanding intention versus like specifics.
Yep. So when did the competition side kick in for you? Because you kind of get into skating without, it didn't really seem like you were competitive and you were trying to get into it because I'm Lizzie that wants to win.
Um,
Or was that secretly in you?
I think I've just always been a really competitive person. I just like, I'm competitive against myself. So like when I first started, when I first started skating and it was my brother and I at the park, I just wanted to be better than him.
So you were competitive from the start. Yeah.
So I was competitive with my brother, but my first contest was in 2009 at the Combi Pool, and I was getting boards from SMA, and the team manager asked if I wanted to skate the contest, and I'd never skated a contest, but I was like, let me check out the park and I'll let you know. Again, another one of those things where it's like, I don't know if I want to do that. I need to like feel it out and know if that's what I want. And I went there, and it really just like, I feel like going to contests like made me want to push my skating because it gave me like a different community of like all these people that love this thing that are pushing themselves, and they go to these events and like hang out in different places, and you push yourself at your own pace. And I don't know, you can kind of learn whatever. Like it's not like everyone in the contest has to do the same thing. It's better if they do different things. And I feel like that setting was really great for me. And after my first contest, like the next year, I started going to like events like all over the US.
Really?
Yeah. And that was like really cool. I remember I used to have to like make a budget for my mom and like map quest the directions from like the skate park to the hotel and like the airport, and see like if she could afford the trip, which was like amazing.
That's unreal. How old would you be? Like 15, 16?
2009. I would have been 16.
Making budgets for your mum.
Yeah.
That's unreal. What was there anyone helping fund these trips at that point?
I mean, the first contest I skated, I made like $200 or $300, and so I was like, if I can make a little money to supplement, like if I can place, I can pay for the trip. And so it was basically like in the beginning, my mom was paying for it, or I'd ask like SMA for like $100 or something, or like my sponsors at the time, which I don't know, it felt like the biggest task in the world asking for money. Like I felt like so horrible doing that just because like, I don't know, it just at that point, like skateboarding was like obviously just fun, but like asking for money, it was just like, felt like who do I think I am? But yeah, also I think maybe just like the fear of like being told no, like, or like maybe someone like I said, thinking like, who do you think you are? But like, it didn't hurt to ask. And like, I don't know. I feel like all those things were like really great experiences for like me growing as a person.
Oh, 100%. That's just pushing you way outside your comfort zone.
Yeah. Wait, what was the original question you asked me?
We were just talking about if people were helping like pay for you to get to those contests. So you obviously got a real taste for it once you started and you did that first comp. Was it pretty clear like, oh, I definitely want to keep doing this?
Yeah, I like going to the event. It was like, oh, this is like my community. These are my people. And like traveling and getting to this amazing. And once I realized I could make a little bit of money and like pay for, like if I could just get the trip paid for, like that was beyond amazing. Cause like the opportunity I was getting and like experience and like pushing my, like that whole, all those things were just like exactly what I want. Like that was more than enough for me.
Yeah. And so your mum was just cruising around to skate comps with her 16-year-old daughter all over the US.
Yeah. Or I would like go with friends. Like if I had like a friend going and their parent was taking, and I could just like jump on the trip with them. Or like one time my stepdad went to an event and he'd never been on a plane before. And so,
Really?
So that was like a big deal for him.
Where'd you go?
We went to Texas.
That's wild. He'd never been on a plane before.
Yeah.
So just Southern California, born and raised.
Yep.
Damn.
But I don't know, like there's tons of people that like never leave, or like
There is.
there's like I talk to people and they don't leave their town or city, and I don't know, I would say it's sad, but like if you don't want to travel or don't see the point in it, like, and you know, you have everything you need, like why would you change that?
Very simple too. That's one thing that COVID taught me, because it was the first time in my life I never traveled. And I got so much shit done. But I always, maybe it was just where I grew up. Like I grew up in a very remote place, but maybe it's because I grew up in somewhere that was away from everything. But yeah, so when I was basically 18 to 30, I just traveled nonstop. And yeah, COVID was the first time where I'd spent a long period of time in the same place. And I was like, there's actually something to this.
Yeah, it's great.
So some people they never leave and they just get all that productivity for their whole life.
I mean, I think also just like being a part of your own community, that's huge. Like you don't have to do it all. You could just do like be important, like right here.
That wasn't for you though.
I guess not. I think also like, oh my God, I had a thought. It's like escaping me.
It'll come back. So we were talking about not traveling, staying in the one place.
Oh, once I started traveling, that's when I started appreciating where I grew up, or just like Santa Monica in general.
Yeah.
Because like when you're a kid, everything that you're experiencing, when there's no context to like compare it to, it's just normal. And once I started going to other places, I was like, wow, I grew up in such a crazy place.
Do you have any memories that stand out that made you think that?
I mean, one of my first trips, I went to the Middle East. I went to Bahrain and Kuwait. And like, it's just so drastically different. It's so beautiful there. Like, I really enjoyed it. But I feel like seeing like culturally how different it was, I like, it's like, oh, like this is like also beautiful, but just so different. Or like, I remember going to Bondi because I'd go for like the Bolorama.
Yeah.
And I don't know, it kind of felt like the Venice of Australia.
It kind of is.
And I don't know, just like being far away, but then like just seeing normal people like live their lives. Like it just made me realize like how different like that beach is from like my home beach. Or like I remember I went swimming at the hotel in Bahrain, and like I don't know, like you're not supposed to like women, they're dressed very modest, and like
You're not supposed to show your shoulders or
you're, like showing your arms is like
knees,
not
yeah.
acceptable.
Yeah.
And I think having that like culture shock was like amazing, because like that's what's normal there. And like seeing like how I grew up, and like almost like I thought it was crazy when like in the 2000s like someone would wear a shirt that just said like the F word.
Yeah.
Like it just felt like, oh, they really don't care about their life. Like they're like I don't know, like I said, I grew up in a really strict house. And so like, yeah, I don't know, it was just so different. Like seeing the differences in places, like it just made me realize like Los Angeles is so special.
Going to Kuwait for one of your first trips would have been pretty wild. And just seeing like women wouldn't have been driving at that time, I'm sure, and just the way that people dress, and it's very, very different. We lived in Dubai for probably like 6 months, a couple of years ago, and that's a lot more Western. But I mean, yeah, even every day you'd wake up to the prayer at 5 a.m.
So cool though. Like,
Yeah,
I remember
it was-
hearing like the speakers, and like you don't know what's going on, but like learning about like how that's like normal there, and like
Yeah.
I don't know, it is kind of beautiful. Like I feel like everyone waking up to a prayer and like kind of I don't know, knowing that they're all doing that, like culturally it must feel so cool.
Oh, 100%. And you can,
Or like uniting.
yeah. And I mean, so there's the sunrise prayer, everyone's up, they all face in the exact same direction, get on their mat and do the morning prayer. And it's like at 5 a.m. in the morning, Middle East time, there's literally millions and millions of people saying the same thing at the same time, facing the same direction. Like that, there is definitely something special to that. And when you're a Westerner that's going to like I'm obviously not getting up and doing the prayer in the morning, but every morning it was a cool thing to hear and to kind of know that that's what was going on. So different to what I experienced growing up, you know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I just feel like those things, like, it just makes you realize, like, how you live or how you want to live. And it's an opportunity for you to, like, be intentional.
Mm. So you're traveling around and you're doing these skate contests and it eventually starts to get serious. You said before, but what was like the key kind of turning point in all of that for it to be pro?
So I had skated contests, but knowing like event skating was not stable. Like, you know, if you get hurt, you're not going to be able to compete, which would mean like you wouldn't be getting like money. And so I was like, yeah, obviously this isn't like a way to have a career. And I eventually went to Birdhouse. And
How did that come about?
So one of the people I grew up skating with was Jeff Grosso. He passed, but he was a pro skater and like still very involved in skating. And he was kind of like one of the critics of skateboarding. Like grumpy. But like, I don't know, he was very opinionated, very great storyteller. And I don't know, I would skate combi with him, and I think he just like was kind of like mentoring me. Like he would just like ask me questions that like he was like, oh, like if you could ride for any brand, what would you ride for? And I thought of all the brands that were around at the time, and Birdhouse seemed like the best kind of fit because they had street skaters but also transition skaters. And so
and are never not going to have transition skaters.
Yeah, it's Tony's brand. Like,
Yeah.
Tony skates transition. Like, there'll always be that. And a lot of the street skaters on that, like, on Birdhouse can skate transition as well. And so I was like, oh, yeah, that just seems like a natural fit. And basically after that, I just, like, reached out to anyone who I knew that knew Tony. And I was like, I want to get on Birdhouse, or I want to like ride some Birdhouse boards. And eventually he like hit me up, and I started going to vert demos, which were super fun because he like, I don't know, like vert demos, like you would get to travel for skateboarding, and it would like with Tony, they would like set you up in like a nice spot, and like on a demo, like the pressure's kind of off. Like all you have to do is skate. Like it's not like a contest where it's like, I don't know.
I mean, even if you fall, it's kind of like cool for people that are there watching because that's like there's a wow factor to it as well.
Yeah, like it's less pressure. I think it was just like really fun to do like another form of like traveling for skating, and then eventually like we started working on like a video. And also when I got on Birdhouse, Tony was like, yeah, I want you to be a part of the team, like public facing. And I think at the time that was like he saw, like I think Tony's always been about like pushing skateboarding, or like I don't think he ever like saw a reason why like women can't skate or whatever, or like shouldn't be involved. I feel like that's like the wrong words for it, but like.
But I'm sure there would have been a subset of the skating culture that were like, yeah, fuck that. Like, we don't need chicks skating. Like, surely there was that in
that
in
attitude
the industry.
was there. Like, it's definitely like I remember growing up, like basically like being a woman at a skate park meant like, oh, you're there to like watch the guys, and that's like all you're really allowed. Like, it was. And it's also just like skateboarding so mature, and so it's like we all think like the world is about us, and so like a bunch of dudes in one place that's like the guys hang out is like the second there's a girl in there, everyone just like acts like a little funny or tries to show off, and like it definitely changes the
social
ethos,
dynamic.
yeah, of the social dynamic of the area. And I think it is for better. Like the skate park is a place for everyone, and like if you're being negative and saying like, you know, it has to be this or it has to be that, like unless you're like hurting people, like the skate park is for everyone. Like you don't need to like put people down or like bring in weird energy there.
And so Tony was a person that did not have that philosophy. Like he
No, he was really supportive.
He saw, I think he probably saw exactly where you ended up, really.
Yeah, he definitely like believed in me and like gave me the opportunity to like push myself. And like I mentioned before, he was like, you should film a video part. And at that time, I'd never done that. Like, I feel like that's a very normal thing in skateboarding. But growing up at my home park, like, it was kind of like daycare. And like, maybe some of the guys would like film each other. But like, I wasn't really a part of their crew because like being a girl is just like, you can hang out, but like you're not like a part of our crew.
We're not going to stack clips for you.
Yeah, or I don't know. It was just like wasn't a thing. And like growing up, I never really watched skate videos because
That's crazy.
I just like didn't. I don't know. I didn't have like I wouldn't like. I don't know. You know how like all the guys will do that. Like
Oh, that was my whole life.
I wasn't in that, or like I didn't pick up like magazines because like I didn't relate to it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like you would look in like a skate magazine and it was very like not inviting to women.
It's very Iron Maiden.
Yeah, it's that, but then also like sometimes they would show women and it was like not in like a good light or like not in like a, I don't know, it was just like a different, like it was like the male gaze of like how women should be.
Yeah.
And that was
probably a lot of groupie type stories and the traveling and that sort of thing as well.
Yeah. And so like I said, I just didn't gravitate to any of that. And
Which makes sense.
I don't know, like eventually started like working on a video part, not watched any video parts. And what's it called? Tony was like, I was working on a video part. I ended up working on a video part with this filmer, that's my friend Schmitty from San Francisco. And I was also at the time like working on a Birdhouse part, but I was working on the Thrasher part first with Schmitty. And so it was like kind of the same time filming, so going on trips for one and then like filming for the other.
Were they different styles of videos?
I mean, one was like a team video and then the other one we were just working on a part. But it kind of just all happened in the same area. But like if you're skating all the time and like filming, like it still differentiates, and like how you put it all together, it's different. It's like music.
Yeah.
Like when you're working on something, you're just like doing it a bunch.
Mm-hmm.
And
So I was saying to Kevin Praz the other day, he was talking about one of his big video parts that he did. He's like, oh, it's cool. I've never really spoke about this, but like this was a spot that I grew up riding with my dad, and like my dad's friends rode here, and it's like kind of to the untrained eye, it's just one trick in a video, but it is so much of your story up to that point to where it's almost like a music album. You know, I've got this song, I've got this riff, I've got this lyric from when I was a kid, and it's finally making its way into a song in a sense.
yeah, I definitely feel like the part I filmed with Schmitty was like so much more personal to me because it was like just us were filming, and like I would invite friends to come skate with me and like basically be like, where do you want to go? Whereas like the Birdhouse part, it would be a trip, and there was like the whole team was kind of dictating what spots we would skate and whatnot. And like some of those days, like I wouldn't really get to skate all day because we'd be at street spots. And so then I would like, eventually I started like talking to the filmer, like, hey, can we wake up early and go to this spot? Also, like during the day, like a skate park is very busy. And so like if we went early in the morning, filmed, I could get my stuff. It was mellow. And then like the rest of the day, we'd just like go to street spots.
Can we watch the first bit that you did with Schmitty?
Yeah.
Is that on what's the
Just look up Fire, Lizzie Armanto Fire.
Oh yeah.
Also at the time, like I feel like people started saying fire.
Oh,
Like-
it became a thing.
So it'd be like, oh yeah, we'll shoot the fire part.
That's awesome.
Or like people do fire emoji.
What's it like to get a part on Thrasher?
I don't know, you just film and I don't know. Wait, what are you asking?
Well, like when you finally see the video up on Thrasher, like that's got to be, it's pretty iconic, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think there was part of me at this time that like, you know, women's skating didn't feel like legit.
Yeah.
And so like for my part to be on Thrasher, it felt like a change.
Yeah.
Like also there has been women before me. I'm not like the first woman to skateboard or
Yeah,
anything. There's
yeah.
been so many, but I think to have a career in skateboarding, like there's only been so many. And now like there's a lot more opportunity in skating.
Yeah. I don't think anyone would argue with the like your place in skating in that sense and what you brought to the table, you know? Like yeah, obviously there was women before, but yeah, I just think you're the first person that's really like done the whole body of a career in the way that you've done it, you know?
Yeah, I definitely feel like it opened the door for so many more.
Yeah.
Like I watched like the women's stuff today and I'm like, oh, it's so cool to see like everyone like trying all these tricks that like felt, I don't know, like together, like that felt impossible, but then they're all
Yeah.
just like trying it together and that's the new norm.
What's it like when you watch this?
Oh my gosh. I don't know. It just reminds me of like I was living in San Diego at this house
Yeah.
and I don't know, it was just such a cool time in my life. Also, right now, there's like the 2016 trend and it makes me cringe. But like, this is like that era.
What's the 2016 trend?
There's just like people on Instagram posting like 2016, so like 10 years ago, because it's 2026.
Yeah, yeah.
This ramp, also this ramp is like so gnarly. It's not there anymore.
Yeah, go
but
pause it. So where was this?
this is in Ramona.
Okay.
And then I remember like doing like the channel gap, and it was like the furthest like hand plant gap I've done.
This is gnarly.
Yeah. I love this pool. This is like one of my favorite places to skate ever.
Where's this?
This is in San Francisco.
Okay.
It's like the deep end is like perfect. This is Tony's ramp.
Yeah. Dude, you're sending it.
It's fun to watch because I still skate here.
Do you feel like your style's changed just in like riding, clothing, everything?
Yeah, I definitely am not wearing skinny jeans as much, but I still love them. Like, I think I look better in skinny jeans like when I skate than if I wear like a straight leg or like a baggy pant, because you kind of get lost in your clothing, or like I feel like it's just like more aesthetic.
The skinny jeans?
I know it sounds crazy, but yeah.
No, it doesn't. Hey, I'm open to whatever.
Yeah, I think I look better. Like there's like the tricks.
Are they coming back? Is there a comeback?
I don't know if they're coming back. I'm just saying, like when I see clips of me in baggy clothes versus skinny jeans, I think something about it looks more aesthetic. Like the tricks look more boned out,
Yeah.
or like there's what's the word? You can really see what's going on, whereas like when you wear a bunch of like baggier clothes, like it kind of like sometimes your body movements and like things get lost because you just turn into like a blob. So like if I'm skating and I'm wearing this, like the speed I'm going is going to cause my jacket or my like flannel to go like that, and like sometimes my silhouette will look not as aesthetic.
Yeah.
Like versus if it was like I was just wearing skinny jeans.
Yeah.
Or like sometimes, like I think watching people's hands in skating is really interesting. We all do different stuff with our hands.
Yeah.
And like seeing how our arms, how we're counterbalancing, like what your toes doing. Like growing up, I really didn't skate street, but then once I started messing around on the street course, like it changed my vert skating. Like I got more technical. And so I see that in like, I don't know, my later parts. It's interesting.
Yeah, you're right though. It's like it's more athletic in a sense that there's not many sports that you'll do where people aren't wearing tight clothes.
No, tight clothes are not athletic. You can wear whatever you want.
Yeah, but I guess
like some people wear jerseys because that feels like more like loose and
loose and free. Yeah.
So I don't think it has to do with like it makes you skate better. Like I can do the same stuff that I do in like a baggy jean that I can do in a skinny jean. It's just gonna look different.
Yeah, but like a yoga pose in yoga pants would look very
there's
different
loose
compared to.
There's loose yoga clothes.
Is there?
Yeah, like they have like people wear like pajama looking clothes.
Yeah, they will. I get what you're saying though.
So like it's not the clothes. It's like I don't know. You can wear either, but it's gonna make you look different.
Yeah. What else stands out from that era? Watching that. When was the last time? Do you watch any of your old stuff ever?
Not often. What stands out about this? I feel like this was just such a huge thing because I feel like there wasn't that many women's parts coming out, and it's just I don't know. At the time, like everything I was doing, like I was really pushing myself, but it didn't feel cool. Like the stuff, like it didn't feel like pinnacle or like I didn't feel like I was like pushing skating. Like I was pushing myself, but like it didn't feel glamorous. But when I look back and I look at the landscape, like I have such a different perspective of it. And like, I don't know, it's really cool to see. And I'm like, I don't know. There's times when I look at this version of myself and like I want to go back to parts of it. Like I love like some of the tricks, my trick selection here, and like knowing like how much skateboarding meant to me and like wanting to push myself and prove that like I was good enough. Like I think I was proving that to myself. And so I think I see that. But like I think I was also like, I don't know, by getting on Thrasher, like just like having a part on Thrasher, that felt like some sort of legitimacy. Like I could like like when I had my sponsors, like when I pursued skateboarding and having that check, but then, you know, being in the industry and like imagining a board with my name on it, having a part on Thrasher, like that felt like the next like thing for me at the time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and like, I don't know, just like skateboarding is still male dominated and it felt like, you know, women weren't welcome. And I feel like having this part was like my way of like showing like I love this thing and this is what I want to do. And it felt like maybe, I hope it, I don't know. Obviously skateboarding has like grown and changed so much, but like for me, it was like proving that like I was good enough.
Yeah. So it was very much fake it till you make it in your world for that period of time. Like you were doing all of the right things to say that you'd made it, but didn't really feel like you'd made it during that process in a way.
I think also, like, I just mean like when, at that time, when you said you're a skateboarder, it was like, okay, you're like doing nothing with your life. Like, that's not a real job. That's not like legitimate. That's like.
It's a Peter Pan job.
Yeah. Like, what's the point of doing that? Like, that's dangerous. That's like, why would you do that? But, like, when I loved skating, I loved doing it and I loved being a part of the community and, like, filming and pushing myself and, like, I don't know, learning all these different, like, lessons, like, was such a cool thing and, like, amazing.
So when did you feel, like, validated in that way?
I mean, I think eventually I got, like, the year after I got my pro board.
Yeah.
And, like, that felt like so, like, such a big milestone.
Was that 2017?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And there's something about, like, having a board with your name, like, that's, like, the marker of, like, you're a pro skateboarder in skateboarding. And I'd been doing it for, like, 10 years at this point, and I'd put out 2 parts. Or I think, I don't know if the Birdhouse part was out yet, but I was working on that. I don't think it was out because we were filming. I thought we were filming Tony's intro to his part, but it was actually just me going pro. Like that was the whole shoot that day. And I don't know, it was so cool. Like that day was insane because like I did not see it coming, and like I had slammed the week before, so I was like not really able to skate. I came late to it because I was like, oh, well, I'll just like get there eventually. Because like skate stuff, it's like always dragging on.
Yeah.
Like not in a bad way, but just like no one's on time.
Yeah, you're gonna be there a while, so just.
Yeah, so I was like, I'm not really feeling that good. Like I'm not gonna be like ripping the whole time because like my body's just like still kind of like messed up. And I went there. I skated the ramp, and I was skating so bad. I literally like. I fell. I flew off the side of the ramp, which like never happens. I used to live at that ramp, so I knew the ramp really well. But like, I was just not on, and like, did that crazy like weird bail, and then like, I tried to do a backside air later on, and I fully hung up, like just so off, and my elbow like was like swelling up, and I was like, oh, I have to go get ice, like. Skateboarding is just not working right now. Like this is not my day.
Yeah.
And then someone like was trying to like they're trying to keep me in one place because they're like trying to figure out when to like surprise me. And someone was also like, I'm gonna get ice for you, just chill. And I was like, oh, okay. Didn't think much of it. And then the person I told you, Grosso, he fell. And then Tony went up to him and was like, Jeff, are you okay? And like at the time, like Jeff was like up and down. Like I feel like he was like going through different injuries, and like, you know, and sometimes when someone falls, like usually you just give them a minute, but I feel like he was one of those people where you're just like, you don't really bug him. Like he just like needs his moment.
Yeah.
And I was like, it's weird. Tony's like just all up in his business. And then they like walked off the ramp, and then like Jeff like he like put his head up and then like passed me like the Thrasher mag, and it was like I was on the cover and it was at that ramp, and like when I saw it, like I was just like so in shock. And like I think I also was like, it didn't feel real because like in my lifetime, like the last time there was some like a woman on the cover was like when I was a baby. And so like to see myself on the cover, it just like was so like it like I was in shock and I didn't believe it, even though I was like obviously holding it right there. It was like a physical copy.
So you had no idea that you were going to be on the cover?
No, like I mean, it's one of those things where there's so many deserving, amazing people that could be on the cover, but like you kind of never imagine yourself there. And like right after that, like Tony came from behind him and then passed me my pro board, and just like two huge milestones back to back, and like the whole Birdhouse team was there, and like my mom came out, and like my brother and my stepdad, and they were like, I don't know, I just started like crying because I was just like so overwhelmed with emotion. And yeah, I never imagined getting on the cover of Thrasher, and having my own pro board, that was something that I'd like dreamed of.
Yeah, that's a wild day. Can you bring up the cover of that? I want to see it.
I think there's a video of it.
Oh, is there a video of this whole day?
I think so. There's like a recap. That's like a
later one.
Yeah. Oh, there. Lizzie's
Go up. Yeah, here we go. Perfect. Oh, so this went on Thrasher as well.
Yeah.
This is awesome.
There was literally like a boba truck in the driveway, and I somehow didn't see it.
A what truck?
A boba truck.
Like a tea? Like the
yeah,
tea?
boba tea.
Oh my God. That's awesome. Oh, a cab.
It's like
shout out to Cab, actually. He's how we got you on here.
Yeah, I remember.
Yeah.
He's insane.
He's the nicest dude in the world. Oh, so this was the ramp that it was at.
Yeah. So I lived a block away.
Yeah.
Or I used to live here, and then I moved a block away. So he's like one of my teammates, Sean, and he's a street skater, but obviously can rip on the vert ramp.
Yeah. That's just got to be the coolest thing.
This is whose house it was.
Yeah.
Brighton.
So there's a few chicks that rip there.
Yeah, so I grew up going to contests with both Nora and Nicole.
Yeah, okay. Are you older or younger?
I think Nora and I are the same age. I think Nicole's a little younger than me,
Yeah.
but we're still really close.
That's awesome that you kind of had a little crew.
Yeah, I mean, you just like knew everyone because skateboarding was still like so small.
So small then.
This is Jeff.
Yeah. Oh, that's awesome. So this was the slam?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, there goes Tony.
Yeah, like out of nowhere, he's just like bugging him.
You can see the mag.
Welcome to the big leagues, sweetheart.
My shirt is literally inside out because I like was so like out of it that day. Just like, oh, I have to go to this thing. There's like dirt on my shoulder from slamming on the ramp.
That's amazing. This is so cool.
It's hilarious.
That's unreal.
Look, see, and then Tony just like comes up.
This is crazy.
The artist that did the graphic is from I found him or like I knew of him from like growing up in Santa Monica, and he like had some art at one of the restaurants that I loved.
Yeah.
It was so cool. And then my mom like comes from somewhere.
That's unreal. That's so cool.
Yeah.
That's such a cool moment for all of those. Like a lot of organization went into that from a lot of very hectic people.
I swear that was like on a Wednesday too. So I was like, it's crazy they got all these people out here for like Tony's party.
That's so good.
Or like Tony's intro part for the Birdhouse video.
And so that there's probably like a very legitimizing moment in your career.
Yeah, that was like a crazy day. Also just like so many people in one place that are like really important.
Mm. And so you were on Monster by that point.
Yeah, I was. So I got on Monster in like 2016, so like the
Just
year before.
that,
Yeah.
How did that come about?
So I think they were able to get Women's Park back into X Games.
Ah.
And naturally, like at the time, it was like, I think they really just like, if they did that, then they next like reached out to me, which was amazing. And yeah, I don't know. I just feel like X Games and Monster are just so synonymous.
Yeah. Yeah.
And like the Monster team is so cool. Like all the skaters they've always had was like all people I looked up to.
So that's been 10 years that you've been with them.
Oh my God, yeah.
That's crazy, eh?
That is.
Went quick.
I don't know. I feel like time is weird in the sense of like 10 years. Like when I think back about this, like it doesn't feel long ago. But then when I think about everything that's like happened in between then, it's like an eternity ago.
Yeah. Yeah.
Time's weird like that.
You're like, how did I fit all of this in 10 years?
I mean,
But then it went so quick.
just by not chilling. Do not chill.
Yeah. Okay. So that's the thing. You're not chill in that way. You're always doing something.
Yeah, I just like don't chill. I mean, I do plan rest.
You seem very chill.
Thank you. I feel like I have this one, I think it might just be like the finish in me, but like I feel like I'm always just like there's a lot of things that I'm interested in, and like whatever I'm doing, I'm like super passionate about. I think I'm like what you were talking about earlier, where it's like it doesn't always show. Like I'm not like very outward. I'm not like super extroverted, but whatever I am into, I'm just like 100%. I feel like I can be like, once I make a decision, like everything is just in line. Like I don't feel like I have to ease into certain things. It's like, okay, I'm going to go this way and it's set.
And that's the finish in you think? What culturally, like where does that come from, do you think?
So Finnish people, like I started going to Finland. Okay, like my family's Finnish, but when I was older, I started going to Finland a lot more, and like not just for family trips. And once I started just like meeting people outside of that, it made me realize like a lot of Finnish people they're kind of like standoffish isn't the right word, but like they're very like to themselves and like, I want to say like, I feel like I'm using like bad words, but like not welcoming or like just cold.
Mm-hmm.
And like whatever they're into, they're just like usually super into and passionate about. And so like when you talk to them about like what they're into, it's like they won't shut up.
Yeah.
And they're also like super tough. Like I feel like there's this thing called sisu, and it's just like it's grit.
Mm.
And like I feel like I get it. Like to be in skateboarding, like one, it's like so fun, but like you also have to like know that like at some point like you're gonna slam, you're gonna like get hurt. And like to do that and get back up again, like you have to be a little tough. And like things can shake you, but like I don't know. I think there's something about it.
Mm.
Also,
No.
like, just, like, where Finland is, it's, like, super far north. And, like, you know, in the winter, there's, like, basically 2 weeks of darkness in certain parts of it. And then in the summer, it's, like, light out, like, all day. You have to have, like, blackout curtains. Like, to live in an environment like that, it's, like, super extreme. And so, excuse me. So you'll see people, like, you know, in the summer, it's, like, they're alive. And they just go all day. Or, like, if you ever, like, I don't know, if they're on vacation here, it'll be like the dead of winter, and to us it's like freezing because it's like 50 degrees out, but they'll be like in shorts.
Yeah, just living.
Yeah, or like Finnish cultures, like they love the sauna. It's from there.
Yeah.
And they'll do like ice plunges and go in like the ice river.
Yeah.
And they love it. And like I've done it, and I'm just like, I get it. It's amazing. Like,
Do you do sauna? You've got the sauna at your place, don't you?
I used to.
Was that the LA house?
Yeah.
Before you moved to San Diego?
Yeah, I didn't want to. I feel like wooden things do not travel well. Like whether it's a sauna or like a vert ramp, like the more you take something apart and put it back together, like wood does not like that.
Yeah. So you had the ramp at your LA place? Or was that the same?
It was in LA.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so you don't have
It's
that
my
now?
parents live there now.
Ah, okay. So, but you don't have a ramp where you're at now?
No, because I live in the land of ramps.
Yeah,
like
true.
San Diego, there's basically like a ramp in every direction of me.
Really?
Yeah.
So you can just ride one whenever. You got Tony's.
Yeah, and Tony's is like it's made by a stage company. So like, you know, when bands go on tours, there's like a stage that travels with them. His ramp is made so perfectly and everything connects in, and it's like metal. The frame is metal. And like it can pop, they can like put it up with like 2 people, I think, which is crazy because it's a giant ramp. And like it feels amazing. It's so fast. And I don't know, it is perfect.
So once you skate that, and if that's close, you're just like, I'm not skating anything else.
Yeah, you also compare everything to that. Like my ramp I love my ramp for like lip tricks, and I have pool coping on it. So like in the last video part we watched, like my ender where I do a blunt slide, it's a ramp in Sacramento that has pool coping that's smaller. And so my ramp is like a version of that. And like I love pool coping. I love a little vert ramp. But then if you want to fly, like go to Tony's. Like do not fly on my ramp. It's not fun. Like I don't know, there's just certain ramps or like, you know, every place like
has its own characteristics.
Yeah, there's certain things that are gonna like be easier or like more suited for that.
So what has been the peak of your career in skateboarding, would you say?
Right now, this is the peak of my career.
Really?
Yeah, I feel like getting to represent skateboarding and getting to ride my skateboard whenever I want, waking up and like just being in San Diego, seeing the ocean, making friends all over the world, making plans to go skate with friends all over the world, like that is incredible. Like the younger version of me would not believe that this is my life now. And I don't know, I think there's like, I don't know, like I just feel like if I could go back and tell myself like all this stuff, I'd be like, you're a liar.
Yeah, really?
I'd just be so skeptical. I'd be like, yeah, I don't know. I feel like, yeah, no, life's like so cool. And like you can, like my imagination, and I don't feel like I have a bad imagination, but like I couldn't imagine that life could be like this. Like, I feel like I have the coolest friends in the world. And, like, I don't know, I still get to travel and, like, meet new people. I get to, like, do creative I get to do creative things through skateboarding. And so, like, I've really been able to, like, mix my passions, and I don't know, I feel like so lucky. But lucky is, like, I don't even like that word. It's like I feel so fortunate. I'm grateful.
Luck it's a weird thing because you don't want to, people naturally don't want to attribute their success to luck because it feels like it diminishes the work that they put in to get there.
Yeah, I also just don't want to sell it short because, like, I think, like, if I'm telling other people, like, hey, like, I'm just super lucky.
I'm just lucky.
Like, all these things happen to me. Like, no, I was in the right time at the right place. I put in the effort. Like, sometimes, like, getting the opportunity feels like luck, but then showing up is not luck.
Mm-hmm.
Like, putting in the effort and, like, saying what you want, being direct, like, all those things are in your court. And I think I want other people to know, like, they have the power to, like, imagine the life they want for themselves. And in the beginning, like, it's really hard to get momentum. Like, the first steps are, like, the hardest ones you probably ever take. But then once you have a little momentum, like, you're just, you know, cruising along, and you just figure out how you can, like, do the next thing.
No, it's so true. Yeah, I think that we think of luck as just one thing as well, but I think that there's different types of luck. So there's blind luck, which is just an asteroid falls from the sky, lands directly on your head, and squishes you into the ground. Like, blind luck, albeit bad luck, wrong place, wrong time. But then there's also blind luck of right place, right time, you know?
Yeah.
So that can go both ways. But then there's also the type of luck that comes from essentially at bats. So how many times did you show up for this one thing? And the more times that you put yourself in that position, the more probability that you have given yourself to getting that outcome. So then that's two types of luck. And then there's another type of luck that you're known to be this person. And then so luck comes to you through other people who've seen you and know you. So then there's that type of luck as well. So I think that...
I don't know if these are all luck.
You don't think that that's luck?
I don't know.
Fortune, good fortune is a way that you could say it.
What if this might be like this? I don't know, two sides of the same coin, but, like, things are always going to happen to us, good or bad. How you respond to what happens dictates your future.
100%.
And that's in your power. And so, like, good things will happen and bad things will happen. That's just life. And so, like, what is in your cards is how you, like, play it. And, like, I don't know, we all have the power to, like, choose what we're going to do.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. But I also think that there's a certain amount of and maybe we just say that instead of luck, we say good fortune. But I think that there's good fortune that can come to you based on, again, it's the decisions that you've made, but it kind of ends up being these, like, quote unquote good luck things. But it's been your decisions and your choices that have led you to find that luck. And I think that you can, if you think, like you said, it's just luck, that it's just the blind luck, the asteroid falling on your head luck, then that can be discouraging.
Mm-hmm.
But it's almost, you instead say, I got lucky in this, that this guy knew this guy, but it was off the back of showing up every day, making good decisions. So it's luck in a sense, but there's different types based on the person that you were before that.
I would agree. I feel like we're doing a lot of defining today. Like, talking about words.
But I think sometimes we don't think about, like you don't think exactly what you mean by a thing or exactly what a thing is,
I think I am following.
So in terms of career though, in the peak, like was it the Olympics? Was it X Games? Like, is there something thus far that has been, I guess, the defining moment of your career?
For me, getting paid through my sponsors was huge because that was like meant that I had a career, like to my family.
Yeah.
And then I think to the world and outwardly, like having my name on a board or like to skateboarding, like that was what I thought was like the thing where I was like, oh, you're legit now. But like those were like two big outward moments. But then personally, I think it's hard to say. I don't know. I feel like there's so many like great things that have happened. Like I have a shoe on Vans. And like I feel like that's so crazy. It shouldn't be crazy, but it's so cool. Like I loved getting to design my shoe. I designed my shoe through COVID. So that was another project I was working on.
Yeah. What's it called? Can we pull it up?
Oh, just like the Vans Lizzie.
Oh, it's just called the Lizzie. That's right.
Yeah.
That's pretty sick.
And I don't know, it's like pretty cool to have your own shoe. Like I feel like in skateboarding, it's like also like the cover, but like only so many people, there's only so many covers a year and like there's so many deserving people, but with shoes, it's like a whole other thing. And like going into a Van store and just like seeing something that you like worked on and that you made a bunch of choices and getting to work with the design team was so fun. Like I loved getting to like pick their brains and talk about materials. Like all that stuff is so cool. Cause also you get to like skate them and see what feels good. You kind of have to like be picky, which I don't know, I think is fun. And yeah, I don't know. Also just like making the shoe, working on design. Like one of the things that was important to me about this shoe was like using like materials that felt a certain way. Or like I really like skating in like suede, but then I tried like shoes where it was like half suede, and then I also like just did a canvas shoe. So like there's like a shoe that was like not using animal materials. And I don't know, I think when you're also like you're selling stuff, you have to like think about how other people consume and like being conscious of those things. So I don't know, there's just like so much to learn and like learning about the world in different lenses. And I don't know, like I know for most of them, like with the suedes we used, they were like certified B. They were like certified, oh my God, I'm so spacing right now, but like they were through factories that were like had some sort of certification or like the materials, like there was like cotton, which is like biodegradable on the canvas, and using those kinds of things were cool. And like also pushed the designers, pushed like Vans to like source things in a certain way, and like being an athlete, getting to like have those conversations with brands of like what's important to you is like really big. And I think also growing up in Santa Monica, it felt like a community that like, oh my God, like it felt like a community that cared about like the environment to a certain degree, like growing up at the ocean, Heal the Bay. Like I feel like those things were something that stuck with me. And so getting to like work with the people at Vans and mention these things that were important to me was cool.
It is cool, and it's such a cool shoe. Was it cool to be a female skater that got a shoe that men would also wear?
Yeah.
That's
I mean, my
sweet.
shoe's for everyone.
Yeah.
Obviously, like I'm a female and I got to say what I wanted and what I didn't. I feel like also for like younger people, like smaller people, my shoe's great because like I am a petite person. And like as a kid, if you want a high performance shoe, like my shoe is great. Like a lot of the other shoes, they were like designed by people who with bigger builds.
Yeah.
And so like skating is so much like of a kid's sport or like hobby, like whatever you want to call it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
every kid has a skateboard at some point.
I would like to think so. But
If you got good parents.
if you live in Southern California, everyone has a skateboard.
Yeah.
But yeah, I feel like it's like a really great shoe if you want a high performance shoe and you're like smaller. But also my shoe's great if you're like a bigger person. Like Tony wore my shoe when he was riding for Vans, and I thought that was like so cool, and he liked it. And my shoe, like I grew up skating transition, and I made it to the technicals that like are good for me. And if you're skating like super rough parks, like I feel like, yeah, my shoe, it definitely does wear a little bit quicker if you're on very abrasive material. But like, honestly, like if you make a shoe that's like extremely durable, it doesn't always feel good on your foot.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think that's something to consider because I have heard some reviews about that, but it really just depends on what you're skating. And so like, I don't know, for what I skate, it's amazing. And like, even when I go into Vans and they're like asking me, hey, what can we like adjust? I feel like what we've like come up with is like so good. And like, I really was like, we don't need to reinvent the wheel here. Like we have a good thing. And sometimes I think like when people ask you questions like that, it feels like they're asking like, hey, do you want to like change this up and like restart? But like, honestly, like this is one of the things I'm really proud of.
That's awesome. It's so cool. I think you've sold me on a pair. I think I need to go get a pair now. That has to be a massive moment.
Yeah, that was huge.
In your career. It's such an iconic brand, and in skating, BMX, and just action sports culture. I remember I saw, is it Steve Van Doren? I saw him, I was doing a bunch of filming at Warped Tour with bands in probably like 2015, 2014. And he was just in a mosh pit.
Oh my God, of course.
At Warped Tour. And I just saw him and I was like, hey man, you're the fucking man. All right. That's it. And I just walked off. I was like, what an absolute legend at Vans Warped Tour by himself in a mosh pit to newfound glory. I was like, dude, you are living.
Dude, he can't be stopped. I feel like what's it called? He is such a great person, or like he's just like the right person in the right place. Like he's so good at what he does.
Yeah,
and he's so passionate about what he does. I feel like he's such a good example in the sense of like, I don't think he can stop. And I definitely feel that in skateboarding. Like we're all like, I say like all the legends are insane. Like they're all psychos. I love them. But like they don't, like their energy and like the care that they have, like it doesn't just stop. Like if they have other hobbies, they're just as insane and passionate about those ones that they are like with this. It's like all across the board. And I think maybe just also if you're just like a high performer, like excellence doesn't stop for the other categories of your life. Like I think you have this lens of how you view your life, and like it's really hard to not look at that. And I think that's something I've actually worked on, like when I was growing up in contests and like being so, like when you're pushing yourself so hard, you can be really critical about all the other parts of your life, and knowing like how to like take a break from that. Because there's like, if you're all pressure all the time, like you crack, like that doesn't work. But knowing like when to like push and when to rest, and you know, being excited about things is great. Like I think that's one of like the best things about living.
Yeah, and there's a saying I love: how you do anything is how you do everything. And I think it's very true for people like yourself, like Van Doren, that Tony, you end up being this high performer and you have this expectation of yourself. I think the hardest thing, at least for me, is to be honest about what I can physically achieve in 24 hours. Like I have so much that I love doing. Perfect example. I live in San Clemente, 200 yards from the beach. I don't have a surfboard. I can surf. I love surfing. I don't surf because it's just, I've gotten honest to the point with myself where I'm like, you don't have time for this right now, because I'm that person that will just go all in, and it's like, I'm not the kind of guy that's like, I'm going to go surf today once every month or.
It's hard if you're like not consistent with something like surfing.
Yeah.
Like you need the muscle to do that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, oh my God, I love surfing. I like longboarding, not like surfing because I want to have a good time. But if I haven't gone in a while, it does wreck you.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
and then I just get obsessed with it. And I just know that it'll be one day, I'll get up the next day, I'll get up the next day, I'll be out there if it's flat, I'll be out there if it's too big. It's just, I know that I can't, that's just not a thing that I can do right now. But
maybe you need balance.
That's
Maybe
what I'm
it's
saying.
like a practice of balance.
I can't struggle. I think my balance is just to say no to the right things now.
That can be fair.
Am I doing it wrong?
I don't know if you're doing it wrong, but I do think like in life, if you're looking for a way to like grow, the things that you most avoid are usually the places that could give you the biggest change in your life.
Mm-hmm.
If you're like looking for struggle.
Yeah, I would.
Or like practice.
I would completely agree with that. Yeah, I just think that. Yeah,
but you have to be ready for that. You have to have you have to have the room for that in your life.
Mm.
Like sometimes you're just like surviving, and that's okay. Like there's so much going on.
Mm.
There's so much room to like do whatever, and it's up to you to decide like what's the most important thing.
So I actually got scammed recently on a credit card, which was a nightmare to deal with. A dude in the UK bought $3,000 of Lego, believe it or not, and some Nando's. So I had to cancel the card, I had to wait for a new one, I had to dispute the charges, the whole deal. And this was the second time it happened to me. And it really just made me realize how important proper security is when it comes to anything to do with your money. And this is why I started using Cash App, which was awesome when they reached out and decided to help us out on the podcast. Your security deserves to be a priority, and Cash App treats it that way. With Security Lock, Cash App requires a successful Face ID or biometric authentication to access your account. It's like your money is protected by your own personal bodyguard, even if your phone is lost or stolen. Plus, if you're about to send money to someone new and Cash App notices something looks a bit off or that you might be falling for a scam, it will send you a warning before the money is sent to confirm that everything looks right. Turn on Security Lock in your Cash App settings today and pay attention to scam warnings to keep your money safe. Learn more at cash.app/security. For a limited time, new Cash App customers can earn $10 if they use code SECURE10 in their profile at sign up and send $5 to a friend within 14 days. Terms apply. Cash App is a financial service platform, not a bank. Banking services provided by Cash App's bank partners. Prepaid debit cards issued by Sutton Bank. Member FDIC. Discounts and promotions provided by Cash App, a Block Inc. brand. Visit cash.app/legal/podcast for full disclosures. Are you as passionate about like plants and design and the skating all at the same level, do you think? Like you apply the same attention and philosophy to the other things that you're interested in? Or do you have
I don't know. I just live this life. I just am doing what I'm doing. I feel like I have no control. I have so much control. I like the illusion of control. I am super into native plants. That's probably like one of my biggest hobbies. And I really like it because it's like super functional. Like, well, okay, one, I have a garden, and so I have the space for that. But living in Southern California, like I had no idea that we lived in such a cool like area, like ecologically. Mm-hmm. Like I never really knew that many plants, but then once I got a garden and started learning about like, I don't know what was around it. Like I wanted to plant my yard, and I was just like, well, it probably makes sense to plant stuff that's like from here because it's used to this. And native plant nurseries are like not super common, but there are places where you can get native plants. There are native plant nurseries. You just have to look for them. Like I love Theodore Payne, and
Where's that?
it's in Sun Valley, which is like Los Angeles.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
But there's other ones. There's like where in San Diego, there's this like little one called Neil's Nursery, and it's super cute and small. It's next to Panikin, like iconic coffee shop, and they're small, but they have a lot. And I think the cool thing about native plants is like I have a garden and I have a little bit of irrigation, but like for once my garden is established, I will not need irrigation.
Really?
Yeah, and like establishing the garden does take like some time and skill, but like once you've done that and you can just like set it and forget it, like we also like live in a place where like, you know, water isn't like in Southern California, they have to bring in water from other places, and you know, people spend a lot of money maintaining their yard, whether it's like through irrigation, through like gardeners and all this stuff. Like if you put certain things there, it can be kind of like less effort.
Self-sustaining in a way.
Yeah, and I think that's like way cooler. And also I love going on hikes and seeing like different things in bloom. It just makes me feel like more connected to the space I grew up in, and I feel like that's always been here, and I just like never like it's a whole other world. Like I kind of feel like getting into that hobby was like getting into skateboarding, where like I can't look at like I'm not plant blind anymore. Like I look at like the plants and like see what's going on with them, and I know what they are, and I know like I don't know all of them. I'm still learning. But it's kind of like skating, where you just like see things that you didn't see before.
Yeah.
And it's a different way of like looking at your world, and like finding community through that has been really fun.
So yeah, you do everything the same way you do skating.
I don't know.
That was a long way of saying yes. I'm the same. It's cool. It's cool that you take the same energy into something that you've become one of the best of the world at, into just a hobby.
I mean, I guess I just like I feel like the feeling that you like I don't know, like the feeling that I found when I was in skating, finding that in other things is really fun. And maybe I'm just like addicted to that. But I don't know, also just like learning, like I love listening to people, like I love listening to skate nerds. Like it's like insane, and like following along their conversations is like, I don't know, it's a trip. 'Cause like we're just talking about like this skateboard, which is like a plank of wood with wheels, and like listening to skateboarders like go over like the logistics, or like what this means, or this or that, or but this or that, and just fighting about this thing that's so silly.
It's so simple but so complex at the same time. And I think that
or like that passion. Like I feel like Cab is passionate about the cab and like how it's seen, and like I don't know, just like the fact that we're just like here, and I don't know, there's so many things in the world, and like I don't know, we found something that we're just so obsessed with. Or like just listening, I like listen to people talk about native plants, and like I know some stuff, but then I'm in a group chat and they like will go over like things that I'm following along the conversation, but I just don't know anything, and I just love being like a beginner. I love that I'm following along, but I'm really not a part of, like I'm not on that level to like compute what they're like the level they're on. But I really appreciate the passion, and like I definitely like take things away. Like I like will have takeaways on some days, but then other days I'm like, dude, I don't know what trichomes are.
Oh, that's funny. Yeah, and I think that some of the most awesome things in life are the things that the better you get, the less you know. And I could imagine skating would be like that. Native plants would be like that. And I think that that's the road to the road to true mastery is one where you learn that you
don't know anything.
and then you just keep walking on that road forever.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's just like the being a beginner,
Yeah.
like being open and being curious. Like if you have those in your pocket throughout life, like interesting stuff will come to your way.
Yeah, and then age takes on a different meaning in that.
Yeah, I thought like once you turn 30, you're like done. Like
Yeah,
you're
it's
just
over.
bored. You're just boring now.
Yeah, pack it up, bro. It's over.
And now it's just there's so much more life to be lived, and I think it's so funny how our perspectives are and like how they change or how your palette changes.
Yeah. Styles, interests, influences.
I've always felt that like I am gonna peak when I'm 60.
That's a good goal.
But it's not a goal. I've just like felt this. Like I don't know why, but like at that point I will be doing the most important things in my life. Not that what I'm doing right now is not important. Like I'm so engaged, I'm so involved.
Yeah.
But like at that point, like I can't imagine.
Yeah. It was Bukowski didn't get famous till he was 50. You know the author Bukowski?
I know who you're talking about, but I don't know his career arc.
So I'm pretty sure. Can you look up Bukowski author? Bukowski. I don't know. Yeah, there it is. Author. So go to all. I'm pretty sure he was working in a post office at 50 or something. So go down. Henry Charles Bukowski was a German-American poet, novelist, and short story writer known for his gritty realism and confessional style. His work often hard-drinking, unskilled worker. Just click into his wiki. I'm pretty sure it was like in his 50s when he first kind of had his like big break as a writer. It doesn't really
Maybe
say.
go down to career
Yeah, go down.
or legacy and death or something.
Keep going down. Yeah, go. By 1960, Bukowski had returned to the post office in Los Angeles and began work as a letter filing clerk, a position he'd held for more than a decade.
I feel like this is like the age-old thing of like when you die, like
Yeah.
your work becomes more relevant.
Way more. But yeah, I mean, I think that you'd have to read through it. But yeah, it's like he literally worked in a post office into his 50s. And it wasn't until maybe he didn't even know how impactful his work was, you know? And yeah, it's interesting that you say that because I think so few people have perspective of what they're able to achieve later on in your life or how fame finds you or how like the version of you that you end up being. I think a lot. I love Rick Rubin.
Mm-hmm.
And if you look at you and him, I bet would have like a really great conversation if you ever record a podcast with Rick Rubin. But I look at him and if you look at the Run DMC, Day One, Def Jam, college dorm room version of him, like there's a famous story of LL Cool J coming to his dorm room because that was the address of the record label that he owned. And now to think about the Shangri-La, white hair, beard, Zen master, Rick Rubin, it's such a great example of that. He's like in his 60s and is probably at his most influential. And there was just all these different versions of him in his youth. But it's so late into his life that he is just this like force still, you know?
Mm-hmm. I also think in skateboard, like I know a couple of skateboarders that like, obviously they're not young anymore. Like I feel like Pat Noho is someone who I have always loved his style, but like I feel like his skating, even though he's getting older, like I feel like he's still like perfecting it. Like maybe he's not like the gnarliest dude, but like his trick selection and like the way he skates, like it's so fun and like there's something about it that's like magnetic. And even though he's like getting older and like skateboarding is so physical, like you need to be able to like move around. Like, also, actually, really hilarious. Some of the older guys, like when they're skating, they're like smooth, flowy, amazing, and then you see them like walk.
They're just
It's
like,
so different.
Yeah, just like hobbling around.
Yeah, like the dynamic is amazing. I don't know, just being in the scene is like, it's such a cool thing. I think there's always chaos going on, but like I love just like watching all like the micro things happening, and then when you think outside of like the room that you're in, it's like, this is hilarious. Or I don't know, there's just so much like funny things, but it's all context.
So what do you see yourself doing at 60 then to be at your peak?
I don't know, but I feel like it'll be an accumulation of like everything that I've done. Or like, I don't know. I also think like people that are like the strongholds in their community, like you don't have to be doing like the craziest thing, but like if you're there and supporting other people, sometimes like your support and being the foundation of someone else's like ability or whatever, being there for like the people that you care about, like that's huge.
And underrated in today's society.
Yeah, like I feel like that's such a special place to be and to like hold space for people.
Yeah.
But I don't know what I'm going to be doing. I feel like that's also the fun part of like I get to pick, or I don't feel like locked in or like stuck. Like I don't love, okay, like I don't like routine, which is really bad for if you want to get better at something. But I don't know. Or like when I look at the calendar and it's all like blocked out, like that makes me feel like I'm stuck or like locked in and whatever. But then knowing how I am, where I'm like, I'm going to do 20 things today somehow. Like if I had that all written down on paper, that would like stress me out. But then knowing that I'm just going to do them, like when I'm just doing it, it's fun. And like, I love it in the moment. I guess maybe I just like don't like thinking too far ahead, but I do realize it's incredibly important to do that. So like, you know, like what I said earlier about the things that you don't want to do.
Yeah,
It's
are
like,
the ones that you need to do.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I think it's one of the cool things about your life and career is you've had so much input into everything that you've done, design, with your skating, with sponsors. I feel like there's so many directions that you can take. And it just doesn't seem like you're tied to your competition success either.
No, I think like everything is just a culmination. Like I love like growing up in contests. That was like so fun and like defining and cool. But then also getting to do video parts. That's like also very challenging. And for me, it feels like more of a struggle. But then when I get through it, it just is so rewarding. And like, I don't know, it's the same but different. Like it's all skateboarding. But, you know, the way you practice for a contest is like consistency, whereas the way you'd practice for a video part would be trying something that you're maybe only going to land once.
Yeah. And you only need to land once.
Yeah. And then, I don't know, just like getting to work with sponsors like through my shoe or like Vans with clothing. Also, I got to like renovate my house in Los Angeles, and that was a really fun creative project, like as a different canvas. And I got to like...
It turned out so cool. I was looking at some of the stuff from it. It was pretty amazing.
Yeah. I feel like I really... Not that I went all out. Like, I feel like I was like intentional about it. Like, it's, I don't know, like the floors are skate light. So it was just like fun and silly. But then the cabinets are all just IKEA with like fronts. And I love the longevity of that is like, I don't know, I feel like people like will say like IKEA is like cheap, but also like you can always go to IKEA and get a spare part. So like even if it's like quote cheap, or like, I don't know, there's some people that have IKEA stuff from like decades. It's all on how you take care of something. And I don't know, if you buy something that's really expensive, it doesn't mean that it's durable. And I don't know, like the inspo for some of the things, like my the color palette for my kitchen was like inspired by a project by Alto.
Where would be the best place to see this? Like,
My house?
yeah,
Oh, it's on Domino.
Domino. Let's find it. So where would it be?
Just Domino, Lizzie Armanto. Domino is like a website
Okay.
for interior design. That and then Lizzie Armanto.
Lizzie. Yeah, there we go. I need some of this. I've got to not renovate my house, but my house has like nothing in it, and I don't have a great eye for design.
It's a practice.
I bet 100%.
Also, just like
See, that looks so epic.
this is like this reminds me of like Southern California, like having a pool house. I don't know, maybe a palm tree, but
And that's
native
all
garden.
native
This
plants?
is native garden.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's the house itself.
Yeah. And the outside color is inspired by like another local architect to that area that did homes in this color.
Yeah. Okay.
And like I love the like old railing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like it's like so classic, and I feel like I don't know, nowadays like all the railings are just super standardized.
Yeah. Yeah. So how much input did you have in all this?
I worked with my interior designer like hand in hand. I was just having her like translate.
The ideas and the
Yeah, like
inspiration.
she was doing all the measurements and like doing like
Yeah.
how much and like logistics and
So you were saying that all this, the kitchen is like IKEA stuff?
yeah. So it's all IKEA with custom fronts. We worked with like a local carpenter, Max Kuzor, and like on the right side, there's like all these colored panels. It's like inspired by Alto, who's like your designer's favorite designer.
Yeah.
Like he's
Yeah.
so iconic. He actually made the first like organic shaped pool, which like someone else then like copied the idea, did it in NorCal, and then that caused like a bunch of pool companies to like make these organic shaped pools, like the kidney pool in the back of the house.
Yeah. Right.
Which also, like when there was a drought, it led to like the skaters skating the pools.
Yeah. So he's indirectly very influential
Yeah.
in your life.
So it was really cool to like.
That is very cool. So all
Bridge
those
those.
like all the benches and everything was IKEA, or did you custom make
So the
those?
benches are custom because
Yeah.
we just did it in the same wood, but all the cabinets are IKEA, just with like they milled the front, and then I found these poles that were like super cheap, but they were oak, and I thought they looked amazing.
Yeah, that does look
And
insane.
We paneled the fridge because like fridges are just so like big and take up space and visually ugly.
Yeah. Scroll down, Griff.
I also got like the light sconces on the wall when I was in Japan.
Oh yeah.
So like when I was traveling, I'd like think of things. And the stools are they're Artec stools, and I collaborated with that brand, and the veneers on it are my old skateboards, and they're in the shapes of iconic or like pools that are important to me.
You went in on this.
I mean, just like working with them was like literally such a dream. Like you see these stools, like they'll furnish like a museum.
Yeah. Yeah.
And they're also, Artec is a company that was started by Alto too. So it was just
Oh,
like
right.
another thing where I was like, wow.
This is awesome. So let's keep scrolling down.
Yay.
Love that.
The pool table is done by Lance Mountain. He let
Oh,
me borrow
wow.
it for the shoot.
That's
Like
sick.
he's like one of my favorite skateboarders, but also incredibly artistic and talented.
Yeah, that's incredible.
That thing is like heavy too.
I bet. Yeah, I love this.
So this bathroom, it has like a pink vanity that was like that was the only thing I kept from the house before, and then I just found a tub and like the tile to kind of like match it, and the color palette is inspired like aside from like the pink vanity that's already there, but the rest of the colors are inspired by my dog's favorite toy. which is a caterpillar.
That's awesome. So
Yeah.
you can just take inspiration from literally anywhere.
Like I basically call it Alma's bathroom, which is my dog.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, that's unreal.
And then he paneled the wall in skate light.
Yeah, right.
And then there's like my closet, which is also IKEA. And then it's just like
Yep,
fitted with like custom outsides.
yep. Yeah, this is unreal.
Checker wall that was the bane of my contractor's existence. for,
That
like,
one
weeks.
there.
Yeah, all the tiles, he had to checker them by hand. Like it wasn't a sheet.
That's
and so
gnarly.
it was like, it was a pain, but I appreciate his struggle. It turned out beautiful.
So how much time went into this?
I mean,
I
think
love that.
we worked on it for like 2 years. And I was like living here in like the pool house.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Let's go up, Griff. That tape. Where's that table from?
Okay, so this table, I borrowed it from my best friend that
never
lives
gave
like
it
a block
back.
away. No, I gave it back. It's her dining table, but it's a vintage table. I don't know who made it, but it is beautiful.
Yeah, I love that.
So this is like my guest room, but for the shoot, it looked better just to like make it an office.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And what plant is that?
That is not a native plant. That's just like a house plant that my brother gave me.
That's awesome. Yeah, so you could do this for a living. How hard was it to get rid of that house, or is that where your parents live now?
No, I just rented it out.
Okay.
It's
Was it
sad not
hard?
to live there, but like also I feel like it's just a trade. Like I love living in Los Angeles, but then I also love living in San Diego for different reasons.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. But this is a lane you could see yourself going more into at some point, or was that like a one and done thing?
I mean, I definitely want to renovate the house I'm living in, but I'm just like waiting until it like makes sense. But I do love interior design. Like I think it's just so fun. And like, you know how I was saying that like when I saw like how different people live, like that inspires me. Like I think our space and what we're surrounded in, it also dictates how you feel.
100%. So what I've taken from this conversation,
Wait, we shouldn't end it.
what's that?
We shouldn't fully end it yet.
Don't fully end it yet.
No.
Where do we pick up? Where should we pick up?
So I finished this last year,
Okay.
and then I moved,
Yeah.
and then this year, Tony and I launched a helmet brand.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
What's that called?
YEPA.
Oh, yeah. All right. What's the website?
YEPA brand.
How do you spell it?
YEPA.
What's it stand for?
It's just an exclamation. When I was on a trip in Finland, I was skating this DIY, and then the person I was skating with, he like landed this trick, and afterwards he was like, "Yepa."
Yeah.
And I feel like people say it out there a little bit more, but it's just like a yeah.
Yeah.
Like it's an exclamation, and I feel like it embodied the like stoke of skateboarding.
Yeah.
And I know like when I got my first helmet, like it was so fun to like sticker it up. And I think like when you're first getting into something, like I don't know, you just like have this excited energy. And I don't know, I just remember that like stickering my helmet was like a big moment. And also with helmets, like I feel like there wasn't like a helmet that was a certified helmet that I liked. Like I didn't feel like any of them fit right. And so when Tony and I started to like work on this, we like tried out a few different things, and honestly, like I love the fit of this because it's like certified, which is safe. Like before I used to wear only soft shell, meaning like it was just like padding and not like a hard shell.
Yeah.
And the hard shell will take the impact off a fall. And the way that we have this like helmet like around the edge is soft shell, or soft padding in the hard shell.
In the hard shell. Yeah.
So it's like inlaid, and like none of the hard shells like really touching your head, which is nice. So it doesn't feel bad, and it like sits on your head in like a good way. Sometimes like in the past I've had helmets where it feels like they're on top of your head, or it's like not sitting right, and I feel like we have a really good fit and like feel. And it was also just cool because I've always dreamed of owning my own brand because I like working on product. I like, coming up with concepts. And it was kind of just an excuse to like work with my friends and like do something fun. And I don't know, like I love the team that we have. Like everyone really embodies like what I think like skateboarding is. Like, I mean, I feel like, what's it called? There's so many types of skateboarding, but like, I feel like everyone's just like such a good ambassador for like it.
And how many people are in the team?
I think like 17.
Nice.
There's like a team page if you want to scroll to it.
Go up the top. Oh yeah, team up there.
So it's Tony and I, founders.
Isn't it crazy that the role that Tony's played in your career and life?
Yeah, I mean, he's been so supportive in like so many different ways. And I feel like he's also just such a great role model for skateboarding. Like he's like one of the best people I know at Instagram. Like he makes amazing captions, comes up with like content really quick. It seems like he doesn't overthink it.
Yeah, I bet.
He just like is really relatable. But he's like that also like speaking. I've seen him go on stage and like talk, like do a panel on his own and just not have anything planned, but like know what points to hit. And I don't know, I really look up to him for like all the hard work and like his ability to persevere.
Yeah, he's just the ultimate professional. And so I'm really good friends with Riley.
Okay.
And just some of the stories that you hear and also just how great Riley is. Like he's just the best. He's one of the best people that I know, hands down. And it's like the apple can't fall far from the tree in that circumstance, you know?
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I don't know. Tony just seems like the kind of guy that it's no secret why he got to where he did and had the successes that he had, you know? Like, I just don't think you can do everything that he's done in his life without being a pretty epic dude.
Yeah. I feel like he definitely puts in the work and like, yeah, his work ethic is just super strong.
When he doesn't have to do anything.
Yeah, I feel like he could definitely take it a lot easier, but he just cares and he is passionate and like he still rips on his skateboard. And I feel like, I don't know, like skateboarding would be so different if Tony was not around.
Oh, imagine skateboarding with no Tony Hawk.
It wouldn't, I don't know. I don't know if I would skate because like, I don't know if it would be big enough. I don't know if like I would have heard about it. Like there's been so many waves of skateboarding and like, I don't know, it's like more accessible than ever, but I think a huge part of that is like Tony's contribution.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you think about just the video games.
Mm-hmm.
Like I grew up in the middle of nowhere, Australia, and played Tony Hawk skating. Just a huge and then my music tastes that come from that, and just so many things followed on by his influence.
I think also like a lot of people take up skating when they're like a kid or a teenager, and it's so like impressionable. Like when you watch skating, you don't have to know what's going on to be interested. Like it's just visually interesting and seeing how different people do the same thing.
Yeah, and I think it's the same with music, how it's even if you can't play music, everyone can like feel music and they can imagine what it's like. I was put on the new Zach Bryan album, and I don't know if you like country music or listen to Zach Bryan, but I was listening to that, and on every song, this is what makes him so amazing. Every song he writes, I'm like, fuck, surely like anyone could have wrote that. Like that song is so easy. That's so simple, but no one's ever written it before. And he just has this way of just capturing a feeling, a vibe, telling a story that's just so human, so relatable. And it's just like, how did that song not exist before he just did that, you know? And I think that skating almost has that with people. Like you can watch it, you can see it, and it might not be something that you could do, but I feel like people can relate to that feeling and the freedom, you know?
Yeah, I would say that you said like anyone could do it. And I think a true master can make something look easy.
Yeah.
Like the more, like when you want to simplify something, it's actually very difficult.
For sure.
Like, as humans, we just like try to make things so complicated. But I feel like I sound like an alien saying that. But
Us humans.
as a human.
Yeah. Which I am, I swear.
Yeah. But yeah, I don't know. We just like, if you're a true master, you make it look easy. You make it look relatable.
Yeah.
I feel like what sparked me for skating was watching. So I don't even know who it was, but I watched someone skate my home park at the Cove, and they just like float around. And I was a beginner, but watching it, I was like, it's so easy. At some point, skateboarding will feel that easy if I just keep doing it. Which I don't know why I felt like that, but
That's a crazy insight. I don't think it's normal to think that.
But they made it look easy.
Yeah.
And I
you're
know
right.
that I was not, like, I could barely push.
Yeah.
But seeing someone do something, you're like, oh, it's so simple. And, like, it doesn't matter what you're doing. Like, a master will just make something look, like, you watch someone draw, like, on paper, and they make it look like the stuff just comes out of your hand, and it's like that. But it's actually a little bit more difficult.
You know what I always think of for that? Sushi. You go to Japan and you watch some 70-year-old dude make sushi, and you're like, wow, there's levels to the game. And just like the expression that a sushi master has with their hands, like every movement of their hand is highly intentional, very designed. There's just thousands and thousands of repetitions just in the movement of getting rice and putting it into the shape that they need, like using the knife, handling the fish. Like if you really watch a sushi master, it is the easiest looking thing on planet Earth and one of the hardest things to actually achieve.
I totally get you.
But that's the best. It's two things. It's fish and it's rice. How much more simple can it get? And you can, there's guys that they'll spend.
There's a way to mess it up for sure.
Oh, yeah. But there's guys that it's like 10 years just
making rice.
Handling the rice before you touch fish ever. So you're so right. The deeper you get into the thing, the more it's made so easy by masters, but it's actually so incredibly difficult. It's cool that you could see that early on in skateboarding.
I guess so. I don't know any different.
That's awesome. Well, the thing I've taken away from today's conversation is that you're an artist before you're a skateboarder. I think that you were born an artist. You're one of those people. You have a very unique perspective on how you see the world, and you found skating and it became a form of expression and it became an outlet, but you're just an artist. And I think that you would have found success in whatever thing you ended up doing, but cool for all of us that it was skateboarding.
I'm grateful.
This was fun.
Thank you for having me. It was cool to talk about and get into all the things. I hope that, I don't know, if anyone's listening, that they find something in here that's like a good takeaway or applicable to their life.
I think there's a lot. This was cool. Thank you so much for doing it, and we'll do it again sometime.
Okay, thanks.
If you enjoyed this content, please like and subscribe. And to listen to the full 3-hour podcast, search Gypsy Tales in your favorite podcast platform or click the link in the description below. Gypsy Gang.